Chapter 5:23. Both of them shuddered when they heard this. 10 waves? How could there be so many? But we should be less than 500 meters away. Tang San took a deep breath. If it's that long, we might not be able to hold them off. Hulaina's face was a little red from breathing in the blood mist earlier, but her face suddenly turned pale. How could it be so exaggerated? Teacher said she only had 2 or 3 waves of attacks when she experienced it, Hulaina muttered to herself. When Hulaina came to the city of Massacre, Bibidon had told her a little about the dangers of the Hell Road. But it was not as exaggerated as this. It seemed to confirm Wang Feng's words. The 3 of them walked another 100 meters and encountered the 5th wave of attacks. There were only 3 attacks this time, but they were not ordinary birds. They were a type of soul beast called the Scarlet Flame Flying Snake. There were only 3 of them, and each of them had a cultivation of more than 30,000 years. These scarlet beasts were more than 10 meters long and had 2 wings on their back. They were not inferior to the dark golden Bat King from before. The 3 scarlet flame flying snakes surrounded the 3 of them in a triangle. One of them was dedicated to destroying the path, while the other 2 harassed the 3 of them. You and Tang install these 2. I'll deal with the one that's destroying the path first, Wang Feng said. There were not only 3 scarlet flame flying snakes, but 3 of them. They were much more difficult to deal with. After Wang Feng finished speaking, he walked over and activated his original sin's domain. Wang Feng named the Dark Angel's domain, Original Sin's domain. This was because Wang Feng had already sensed that these 7 blood patterns represented an extremely evil and negative emotion. These negative emotions were similar to the 7 deadly sins that Wang Feng had learned about in his previous life. The 7 deadly sins were called original sins. They were evil emotions that all living beings would experience. In this domain, all living beings would be affected by different emotions. As long as they were affected by any emotion, they would be controlled instantly. Wang Feng believed that even a titled Douluo could not avoid it. It was just a matter of how strong the effect was. Unless one was like him, who used karmic fire to temper his body and cleanse his body and soul, he would be immune to the 7 deadly sins. To be precise, there were 6 of them. This was because the last blood pattern had not appeared or awakened. Thus, this was an incomplete original sin domain. The crimson flame flying serpent used its enormous body to destroy the path. It could even spit out poisonous flames from its mouth. Its entire body was covered in sparkling scales that were incomparably hard. Its only weakness was the top of its head. However, it could fly and easily dodge most of the attacks. It was not easy to attack the crimson flame flying serpent, as it was flying 70 to 80 meters above the ground. Once it saw the crimson flame flying serpent, which was tasked with destroying the path, it would immediately flee. Without the ability to fly, it was almost impossible to deal with it. At this moment, seeing Wang Feng attacking it, it directly flew up to 80 meters in the air. This happened to be the limit of Wang Feng's mysterious underworld spike. Furthermore, the sharp blade formed by the mysterious underworld spike couldn't directly cut through its body. The scales on its body were a special soul skill. The crimson flame soaring serpent hovered in the air and looked down at Wang Feng, hissing and spitting out acid as if it were saying, "Come here, Wang Feng. Wang Wu, my foxtail can throw you more than 30 meters, but it won't work if you go any higher." Hulaina panted as she spoke from behind. She had just used the soul skill in her soul bone and barely blocked the 2 crimson flame flying serpents with Tang Yin. Because the 2 crimson flame flying serpents were both attacking, they were flying very low. They were only 20 to 30 meters in the air. Wang Feng shook his head and suddenly smiled at the crimson flame flying serpent. Then, he suddenly leaped high. In second gear, if he used all his strength, he could easily collapse the path under his feet. Therefore, Wang Feng didn't use all his strength. However, his body became very light and he leaped 20 meters into the air. This distance was far from enough to attack the crimson flame flying serpent. However, when he reached this height, a sharp blade flew over from afar and landed below Wang Feng's feet. Wang Feng stepped on the tip of his foot. He leaped several meters into the air again. The blade's point of leverage was very weak. Therefore, Wang Feng could only jump several meters into the air. However, this was enough. This was because Wang Feng's control speed was very fast. Swish, swish, swish. The sharp blade acted as leverage under Wang Feng's feet. In just a few blinks of an eye, Wang Feng was like an agile monkey climbing 60 to 70 meters into the air. He was too familiar with this. Wang Feng seemed to have rehearsed this scene many times in his mind. After crossing the 100-meter-long broken path, Wang Fengxian's mind became active again. Even if I can't fly now, I can't use sword kinesis flight. However, I can still attack enemies in midair with my control of the sharp blade and my body. However, this method is more troublesome. The crimson flame flying serpent was also shocked. It didn't expect this human to use such a strange technique to reach 60 to 70 meters into the air. Tang Yin! Wang Feng abruptly yelled. His sharp blade was acting as leverage under his feet. He couldn't use it as a weapon now. Furthermore, the crimson flame flying serpent was too huge. The god-slaying dagger couldn't kill it. Tang San focused his gaze and swung the clear sky hammer in his hand. Wang Feng's palm sucked the clear sky hammer into his hand. Immediately after, 20 sharp blades overlapped under Wang Feng's feet. Wang Feng stomped down firmly. He leaped high into the air and smashed the crimson flame flying serpent's head. The crimson flame flying serpent screeched. It was completely controlled by the original Sin domain and couldn't react at all. Boom! The hammer fell and the crimson flame flying serpent's head was smashed into pieces. With a thought, Wang Fengxian sent a sharp blade through the minced meat into the crimson flame flying serpent's body, crushing its organs. At the same time, Wang Feng used the same trick. From midair, he tapped the sharp blade lightly and headed for the other two crimson flame flying serpent. This method consumed a lot of spiritual power and required very accurate calculations. Otherwise, one careless mistake would cause one to fall directly. Probably other than Wang Feng, no one else had such immense spiritual power to control the sharp blade while calculating the landing point. The two crimson flame flying serpents that were still attacking Tang San and Hu Laina had yet to react. As Wang Feng exerted the original Sin domain around him, they instantly lost control. And Wang Feng used this method to jump around the two crimson flame flying serpents with increasing proficiency. Under the original Sin domain, these two crimson flame flying serpents couldn't react. One of them was directly smashed to pieces by Wang Feng's clear sky hammer and then hammered the other one. However, the other crimson flame flying serpent seemed to be controlled by the original Sin domain, but it also reacted a little. Not only were both brothers killed by the same move, but its head tilted. When the clear sky hammer struck its body, it only scraped a series of scales and made a ringing sound. It couldn't cause any actual damage. End of chapter. Chapter 524. But at this moment, the red light in Hu Laina's eyes directly shot into its two snake eyes, causing its dodging figure to pause. At the same time, the purple extreme divine light in Tang San's skull shot out at the perfect moment, hitting its head. 3 scarlet flame flying serpents were eliminated just like that. Wang Feng landed lightly with the help of his sharp blade, looking quite dashing. How are you guys? Wang Feng glanced at the two of them. This was already the 5th wave of attacks. Tang San and Hu Laina were sweating profusely and their faces were pale. Obviously, their soul power had decreased by 20%. I'm fine. Tang San took a few breaths, and a scarlet color flashed in his eyes. Fortunately, you killed that scarlet flame flying serpent first. Otherwise, I'm afraid there would be no road ahead. At this point, Tang San couldn't help but look at the white-clothed Grim Reaper. He didn't seem to be sweating. His white robe was still fluttering, and he didn't look like he had just fought a fierce battle. The way he attacked just now was also an eye-opener for Tang San. His soul power was already amazing, and the hidden weapon required a high level of skill. He knew how strong and precise the control was to be able to do that. The slightest carelessness would cause him to fall into the blood pool below. Only those who were extremely confident in themselves would dare to do that. I only have 30% of my soul power left. Tang San looked ahead, but he still couldn't see the end. Was this the road to hell? Endless attacks, an endless road, and an increasingly hot and murderous environment. Even with Tang San's willpower, he was slightly shaken, but he immediately became firm again. I also have 30% left. Hulaina took a few breaths. Her soul power consumption was relatively small, and she only needed to use it at critical moments. The close combat was left to the white-clothed Grim Reaper and Tang Yin. The surrounding environment is very bad. Wang Feng looked around. If we recover our soul power here, it's easy to absorb the murderous aura in the blood pool below and cause serious damage to our soul power. This means it will be difficult for us to replenish our soul power. The further they went, the more violent and murderous the energy of heaven and earth became. Wang Feng could absorb it because he had the meteoric tear to compress and purify it, which also had a tempering effect. However, if Tang San and Hulaina absorbed the energy of heaven and earth here, there might be a big problem. This was also the reason why the further one progressed, the more difficult it became. Soul power could not be replenished. At every moment, he would be under tremendous pressure. At this point, they didn't even have the chance to turn back, because most of the paths behind them had collapsed. He could only move forward. Tang San and Hulaina fell silent because they also felt it. The three rested for a while. Continue forward. Every 100 meters, they would suffer another wave of attack. During the 7th wave of attacks, a 40,000-year soul beast appeared. By the 7th wave, Hulaina only had about 10% of her soul power left. Her face was completely red, and her entire body was emitting waves of baleful aura. Clearly, he was already exhausted. Tang San was still able to hold on. He still had more than 20% of his soul power left, and his blue-silver domain could slightly purify the energy around him. However, using the blue-silver domain consumed even more soul power, and it was impossible for him to replenish it. Moreover, even if Wang Feng absorbed the killing intent and baleful aura in their bodies, the damage to their minds could not be healed. Therefore, after the 7th wave, Hulaina could no longer hold on. At this moment, they were about 200 meters away from the blood pool below. The temperature in the air was already very terrifying. According to Wang Feng's estimation, it was at least 60 to 70 degrees. He estimated that he could fry an egg in his hand. Tang San's blue-silver domain was very practical. It could slightly reduce the surrounding temperature and allow one to regain consciousness. However, if he kept using it, he would not be able to hold on. I can't take it anymore. Hulaina's whole body seemed to have a high fever. She muttered, "You two go ahead. Don't worry about me." Fortunately, it was the 6th wave of attacks, and Wang Feng alone killed all of them. Because the 6th wave was a flying tiger-headed demonic flame eagle. Relying on Wang Feng's sharp blade, he barely managed to deal with it in midair for a long time before killing it. Neither of them used their strength. They only made a move during the 7th wave. Tang San was stunned and looked at Hulaina. He had the blue-silver domain, the uniqueness of the mysterious heaven method, and a huge amount of spiritual power. He also relied on the white-clothed Reaper to absorb the boiling killing intent and baleful aura by his side. He did not fall into a berserk state, nor did he faint. However, his body was already exhausted, and his mind was also beginning to weaken. Tang San also felt that every step he took was as heavy as lead. He was only slightly better than Hulaina. At most, one wave. Tang San felt that he could at most hold on for one more wave. Looking at Hulaina, Tang San fell into silence. Was he really going to leave her behind? In all fairness, Hulaina had played a great role along the way. After so many battles, was he going to abandon her just like that? Wang Wu, how much soul power do you have left? At this moment, Tang San looked at the white-clothed reaper. After 8 waves of attacks, if one had to say that the snake had played the greatest role, it would be the white-clothed reaper. Tang San suspected that if it was not for him, with just himself or Hulaina, they would not be able to survive the 3rd wave, let alone the 8th wave. Moreover, he was the main attacker in all 8 waves. However, the white-clothed reaper did not seem to have consumed much soul power. 60%. Wang Feng said casually. His soul power consumption was not much. Most of it was consumed by using the original Sin domain. However, his spiritual power consumption was huge. After all, using a sharp blade to attack consumed his spiritual power too quickly. In addition, it required all kinds of precise calculations. 60%. Tang San swallowed a mouthful of water. Was he really only level 50? Hulaina was already level 59. She could no longer hold on. He had used the most strength, but he still had so much left? Tang San did not dare to imagine. How did he do it? However, at this time, Tang San did not have time to think too much. Then, Tang San glanced at Hulaina and said in a deep voice, "We can't leave her behind." After 8 battles and fighting side by side, he could not convince himself to leave her behind. "I'll carry her." Wang Feng frowned and said, "You and I will continue to move forward." With that, Wang Feng walked in front of Hulaina. At this time, she was already paralyzed on the path. Okay. Tang San did not hesitate. The other party was stronger than him and had more soul power than him. He had enough ability to carry Hulaina. "If you carry me, you won't be able to get out." Hulaina looked at Wang Feng and said in a weak tone, "Kill me and take the soul bone from my skull. I'll tell you a secret. I hope you can help me keep it." She obviously wanted to tell the secret about the soul bone in her skull. She hoped that this white-clothed reaper would treat the star well. Wang Feng shook his head. Hulaina was too naive. End of chapter. Chapter 525. Although a wisp of Xingxing's soul existed in the soul bone, it was actually closely related to her soul. Like Hulaina, even if the soul bone was still there, Xingxing's consciousness would most likely dissipate. However, after hearing what she said, Wang Feng was still a little silent. "Stop talking nonsense. What's the difference between your body and a few pieces of pork to me?" Wang Feng said impatiently. "Do you think it would take a lot of effort for me to carry you?" Hulaina. Wang Feng squatted down slightly and continued, "Climb up yourself." Hulaina was silent for a few seconds, and without hesitation, she gently climbed onto Wang Feng's back. The moment she climbed up, she felt her whole body go soft. The other party's aura made her feel refreshed. It was the first time she was so close to a strange man. Hulaina did not feel uncomfortable at all. Instead, she wanted to hug him even tighter. Because that kind of attraction was too strong. "I can't hold it anymore. No, I have to be reserved." Hulaina gently bit her lips and gently placed her hands that were red because of the heat on Wang Feng's shoulders. Her slender legs climbed onto Wang Feng's waist. Her upper body unconsciously pressed on Wang Feng's back, forming a huge outline. Wang Feng used a rope to slightly tighten Hulaina on his back. Logically speaking, Hulaina's body was as soft as a ball of cotton, which was very attractive to men. "But sorry, it's impossible for me to get hard like this. Right now, I can get hard and soft whenever I want. No woman can tempt me. All those messy images, get out of my pure soul's mind." Wang Fengxin thought. If his brain and soul had not been tempered by the Red Lotus Hellfire, he might really be tempted now. But it was very difficult now. He could control himself. "Let's go," Wang Feng said calmly. Tang San nodded. After resting for a while, the two continued to move forward. Soon, the two encountered the 8th wave of attack. It was a 10-headed scorching sun snake. Tang San was very familiar with it. This snake could not fly. It could only coil around the surrounding walls and small paths to attack. Wang Feng felt that this snake's cultivation was only around 40 to 50,000 years. Tang San said to let him attack this time. Otherwise, if he continued to walk, he might not be able to use the 20% of his strength that he had saved. Wang Feng did not hesitate as he watched Tang San use the clear sky hammer and the disorder splitting wind hammer technique to kill the 10-headed sun snake. Speaking of which, this was also the first time Wang Feng had seen the true disorder splitting wind hammer technique. After seeing it, he remembered that Tang San and Tang Hao should have cultivated the true disorder splitting wind hammer technique after the Pope took the throne. Tang San used all his remaining strength to stand on the small path in front of him. The clear sky hammer in his hand hammered into the void again and again. Every time he was shocked, a huge airflow would surround him, making it difficult for the 10-headed sun snake to harm Tang San. In its anger, it spat out a small golden ball, wanting to attack Tang San furiously. This is the inner core of the 10-headed sun snake, right? Wang Feng frowned slightly. From the perspective of living creatures, the 10-headed sun snake should be a soul beast, right? The inner core should be something similar to the soul core. In other words, at this time, the soul beast already had a soul core. I really don't know what the Douluo world will be like tens of thousands of years later. Wang Feng suddenly thought. Would the Douluo world change greatly 10,000 years later because of him? However, even without him, the Douluo world would still have a huge change 10,000 years later. Just that, to what extent could he affect it? As the small golden ball came out, Tang San's last hammer strike suddenly stopped and hammered towards the small golden ball. A black airflow suddenly rose, as if forming a huge black dragon, and rushed directly towards the small golden ball. A muffled groan sounded, and the small golden ball suddenly trembled. The huge body of the 10-headed sun snake suddenly trembled, and then suddenly stopped. Then, the snake began to rapidly shatter from its head. Finally it collapsed. Although it took too long to accumulate power. But the wild splitting wind hammer is indeed unique. The current Wang Feng was no longer the 6-year-old Wang Feng, so he was not too surprised by the wild splitting wind hammer technique. In terms of grade, the absolute wind and thunder divine spear technique that he had created was much higher than the disorder splitting wind hammer technique. After all, it borrowed the power of heaven and earth. But in terms of technique, the wild splitting wind hammer technique was much more perfect than his wind thunder absolute divine spear. After all, it was tempered and changed by countless people. In comparison, his wind thunder absolute divine spear still had many shortcomings, many areas that could be improved, and many areas that could be strengthened. After looking for a while, Wang Feng filtered it in his mind and found that he had actually studied the way Little Three used his soul power. It seems that the brain after being tempered by the Red Lotus Hellfire is indeed extraordinary. If it was before, I would at most understand 20 to 30%. Wang Feng thought to himself. After all, this was the complete wild splitting wind hammer technique used by Tang San, and the last hammer strike was even used. It was not like the reversal of heaven and earth that Wang Feng barely created with just one technique. In the 2 years in the extreme north, Wang Feng did not make much progress in reversal of heaven and earth, mainly because he did not study it, and he felt that he needed a certain amount of opportunity to comprehend reversal of heaven and earth to a higher level. It was not like an epiphany. This kind of epiphany was too rare. In the 2 years in the extreme north, Wang Feng only had an epiphany when he created the wind thunder absolute divine spear. Wang Wu, I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to help you in the future. Tang San dragged his tired body and put away the golden bead. Maybe it's really as you expected, there will be at least 10 waves of attacks, because we will encounter them in less than 100 meters. It was not easy for him to defeat the 10-headed sun snake in the 8th wave by himself. Wang Feng also felt that Tang San's body was empty at this time, and there was not much soul power left. In addition to the exhaustion from the battle, his physical strength, endurance, and spirit were all exhausted. However, Tang San was able to resist the environment here because he had taken the immortal herb. Otherwise, he would probably be in the same situation as Hu Laina. The further they went, the weaker the effect of Wang Feng's aura on them. After all, it was just a faint aura, not a domain aura. But Wang Feng could absorb the increasingly violent killing intent and evil aura from the two, which was very fatal. Wang Feng could not use the blue-silver domain for a long time. Tang San could only reluctantly follow behind Wang Feng now, recovering a little bit at a time and holding on with his strong will. End of this chapter. Chapter 526. Are you okay? Hu Laina, who was behind him, looked at Wang Feng in a daze and murmured softly. Wang Feng nodded and suddenly touched Hu Laina's head with his hand. Hu Laina was slightly stunned, not knowing what this white-clothed Grim Reaper meant. Wang Feng just touched it lightly and directly retracted his hand. He was just sensing the aura of the stars, which was still stable. Tang San rested for a while, and the three continued their journey. After a while, there were only 100 meters left. About 100 meters away from the blood pool below, they could completely see the platform below the end of the path. It was also at this time. A ferocious roar could be heard. It's a dragon roar. Tang San was startled and immediately looked down. His face changed, and he suddenly had a breath left. It's a dragon. In the blood pool below, a pair of constricted eyes were staring at them. As if it had been watching them, following this roar, the terrifying creature that had been silent in the blood pool finally moved. As soon as it moved, it almost pulled the blood pool below, and countless blood bubbles appeared, allowing the two to finally see its appearance. This was a dragon-shaped creature that was more than 40 meters long, but its whole body exuded an extremely fierce aura. It had ant-like legs, a snake body, eagle claws, and its whole body was burning with flame-like blood pool lava, exuding a scorching heat. It was a dragon-shaped creature that Tang San had never seen before. It seemed to be born from this blood pool. This blood pool had absorbed countless human blood and was highly toxic. Could it breed a creature here? Tang San felt a little scared. Ordinary dragon-type soul beasts were extremely rare in the Douluo world, and most of them were sub-dragons with impure bloodlines, but their strength was still very strong. But this one seemed to be a little different. This was a very powerful blood pool poison dragon. Ong! This more than 40 meters long dragon soared up and looked at the two of them like an eagle in the sky looking down at the chickens below. It's over. As soon as this poison dragon came out, its huge aura was more terrifying than most of the soul beasts Tang San had seen before. 60,000 years. At least 60,000 years of cultivation. In terms of rank, he was at least equivalent to a rank 70 soul master, but his actual strength was probably several times stronger. 60,000 years. Wang Feng sighed. In such an environment, a 60,000-year-old poison dragon was indeed very strong. It was not inferior to a 70 or 80,000-year-old poison dragon. Tang Yin, can you still condense your clear sky hammer? Wang Feng said all of a sudden. Tang San was stunned. He nodded and said, I can still condense my real body, but I don't have the strength to use it. That's fine, as long as I can use it. Wang Feng said, Take my clear sky hammer. This beast is a little troublesome. I plan to end it quickly. This poison dragon was indeed quite strong. Compared to his 4 underlings, it was not much weaker. Of course, it was his little brother from 2 or 3 years ago. By now, those fellows should have become very strong, right? Unknowingly, 2 years had passed in Slaughter City. Okay. Tang San did not hesitate at all. At this time, life and death were hanging by a thread. Tang San used his remaining soul power to condense the clear sky hammer's real body and threw it to Wang Feng. Then, he looked at him closely. Wang Feng loosened his muscles and bones. After thinking for a while, he untied Hulaina so that she would not be numb from the shock when they fought later. However, after a while of cultivation, Hulaina recovered a little and could barely stand. But after leaving Wang Feng's body, the surrounding environment was too uncomfortable for her. The current temperature had risen to 100 degrees. This was a very hot environment. Sometimes, the sparks from the bottom of the blood pool would accidentally stain their clothes and could be easily ignited. What does he want to do? Hulaina's face was flushed red. She could barely stand, and her vision was a little blurry. However, there was still soul power in her body that could resist a little. I don't know. Tang San shook his head. Wang Feng held the clear sky hammer and walked to the small path in front, quietly looking at the poison dragon. With his current second-grade strength, he could not win this poison dragon in a short time without using anything. Moreover, this environment had increased the strength of this poison dragon, especially the blood pool below. But without using any of his martial soul forms, and without using the Pangu axe, Wang Feng still had a way to defeat this poison dragon. After all, he had cultivated in the capital of Massacre for 2 years. Wang Feng's body shook, and his upper body suddenly glowed with a violent purple light. A terrifying aura was emitted from his body. Torso soul bone. Tang San and Hulaina took a deep breath. Moreover, judging from the quality, the age of the torso soul bone was probably not ordinary. Yes, it was the torso soul bone. The blood-devouring ice dragon whale's soul bone that Wang Feng fused with the cauldron of heaven and earth. The pressure emitted by the 100,000-year soul bone was enough to shock Tang San and Hulaina. Even the poison dragon roared at Wang Feng, and there was actually a little fear in its eyes. What kind of existence was the ice dragon whale? Even this poison dragon was intimidated by the big boss soul beast in the extreme north, who had a cultivation of 90,000 years and became an overlord. This blood-devouring ice dragon whale's torso bone naturally retained some of the ice dragon whale's aura. To be precise, after the fusion of the two soul bones, there was still the aura of the blood-devouring dragon beetle. Of course, Wang Feng used the torso bone not only to suppress this poison dragon. Seeing this, the poison dragon's eyes flashed fiercely, and it opened its mouth to spit out several violent scarlet poisonous flames at Wang Feng. Spirit seal! Wang Feng shouted in a low voice. Suddenly, a violent icy dazzling light condensed at his lower abdomen, and like a water column, it shot towards the poison dragon. The moment the scarlet poisonous flames came into contact with the icy mystic light, they were immediately frozen into countless ice cubes. When the poison dragon saw the ice cubes, it let out a shrill roar, as if it was very afraid of it. The icy mystic light covered the entire poison dragon, and in almost a few seconds, the entire poison dragon was instantly frozen into an ice sculpture. Even the poisonous flames that it had just shot out were completely frozen. The scene was exceptionally spectacular. This was not an ordinary ice seal, but a spirit seal. This was why this poison dragon could even freeze its consciousness. This was the ice dragon whale's proudest skill, and it was because of this that the ice dragon whale could barely seal the myriad spirit ice heart back then. With Wang Feng's current soul power, he could only freeze this poison dragon for about 10 seconds. It seemed like a lot, but it was already a lot. Following this, Wang Feng did not use his second soul skill, because there was no need for it. He held the clear sky hammer and stood on the small path. He recalled the various postures and details when Little Three used the disorder-splitting wind hammer technique, and everything was clear in his heart. Following this, Wang Feng swung his hammer towards the void. In the next moment, Tang San's body shook, and he looked at the white-clothed death god in disbelief. Disorder Splitting Wind Hammer Technique? P.S. There might be 2 more chapters tonight. End of chapter. Chapter 527. Under Wang Feng's hammer, the air shook, and a stream of air suddenly gathered around Wang Feng's body. Huliena, who was in a daze earlier, could not see that strange posture. However, Tang San saw it clearly. It was the real wild splitting wind hammer technique that his father had taught him over the past 2 years. How is this possible? Tang San muttered. Is he also a disciple of the Clear Sky sect? But his woohoo is not the Clear Sky hammer. Even if he's from the Clear Sky sect, not every disciple has learned the wild splitting wind hammer technique. Boom, boom. While Tang San was thinking, Wang Feng did not stop. He recalled Tang San's posture when he performed the 81 hammer strikes, the way he channeled his soul power, and various special techniques in his mind as if they were slowed down by 10 times. Sometimes they were fast, sometimes they were slow. Gradually, Wang Feng felt that every hammering motion of Tang San overlapped with the image of Tang San wielding the hammer in his mind. The chi aura around him became stronger and stronger. Vaguely, a black stream of air slowly rose from Wang Feng's body. Seeing this, Tang San, who was behind, became more and more shocked. No, no. Tang San thought frantically. He can't be a disciple of the Clear Sky sect. He didn't even know the wild splitting wind hammer technique before this. That's because he was very inexperienced from the first hammer strike. In the past 2 years, Tang San had been practicing the wild splitting wind hammer technique through Tang Hao's various methods. He practiced it for a few months before he could perform the 81 hammer strikes more skillfully. At that time, he completed it under the impact of the waterfall. After that, he spent some time practicing the 9-to-1. Therefore, Tang San could remember every hammer strike of the wild splitting wind hammer technique very clearly. He could tell at a glance that he was inexperienced. Although the first hammer strike of the white-cloved reaper was the starting stance of the wild splitting wind hammer technique, it was very inexperienced. It was obvious that it was his first time using it. Tang San was surprised, but he was not as shocked as he was now. However, as the other party swung the hammer, he became more and more skilled. After 60 hammers, not only was the form completely similar, but it was also somewhat similar. His every hammer strike is improving. He has obviously just learned the wild splitting wind hammer technique. This is only the first time I've used it. Tang San was a little shocked. Obviously, it was because he had just used the disorder splitting wind hammer technique, and this white-clothed reaper had secretly learned it from the side. Furthermore, he had only used it once, yet he was able to learn and apply it on the spot. Towards the end, he was able to use it with incomparable proficiency. How was this possible? What kind of talent was this? Tang San found it hard to imagine. This kind of talent was too terrifying. You want others to casually execute an absolute art, but you can directly learn it. How are you going to live then? In fact, it was because Wang Feng was very familiar with the disorder splitting wind hammer technique. In addition, there were some traces of his own reversal of heaven and earth. That was why he could learn it so quickly. If it was any other technique, it wouldn't be so exaggerated. However, this was the true disorder splitting wind hammer technique. Another reason was that Wang Feng was very clear about the core techniques of the disorder splitting wind hammer technique. Therefore, in essence, he only needed to remember each of Tang San's special postures just now and use the skills to exert force. This was why he was able to apply what he had learned so quickly. However, this could not be considered as stealing, because he was standing there openly. Otherwise, this was something that Tang San had practiced for a long time. He has completely mastered the disorder splitting wind hammer technique. Tang San stared at the last few hammers in a daze. Yes, the last few hammers were almost exactly the same as what he had used. Until the 80th hammer. The black aura on Wang Feng's body suddenly changed. There was actually a bit of scarlet color. At this time, Wang Feng's brain had entered a state of high rotation. His limbs and skin were emitting extreme heat. One had to know that his strength was much stronger than Tang San's. As for the wild hammering technique, each hammer strike was even more powerful. The consumption of Wang Feng's hammer was also much more than Tang San's. Most importantly, when Wang Feng used it, the blood traces on his body faintly glowed. 6 different kinds of extreme emotions seemed to be injected into each hammer. This was unconscious because Wang Feng's original Sin domain was still open. Perhaps even Wang Feng himself did not know. Until the last hammer, the 6 blood traces on Wang Feng's body lit up at the same time. In the last hammer, the clear sky hammer seemed to have been injected with 6 different kinds of power. It was covered with 6 blood traces, as if it had become a blood hammer. Boom. 9-9 returned to 1. The last hammer of the disorder-splitting wind hammer technique. The black aura around Wang Feng's body turned blood-black, forming a blood-black dragon. It was full of ruthlessness and ferocity. It suddenly rushed towards the frozen poison dragon with a roar. The giant dragon formed by the aura directly penetrated the incomparably huge poison dragon. The power of his last hammer doesn't seem to be just the disorder-splitting wind hammer technique. Tang San looked at the blood-black dragon. The disorder-splitting wind hammer technique's 9-9 returned to 1 really combined the power of the previous hammer into the void and erupted with an extremely terrifying power. It could kill enemies of a higher level, but the weakness was also very obvious. It was very difficult to have a chance to use it like this. A slightly more powerful soul master could easily interrupt it. Once interrupted, one would also suffer a backlash. Obviously, the other party had noticed this weakness through the observation just now, so he immediately sealed the poison dragon in ice. How strong is he exactly? Tang San looked at the blood-black dragon that was even bigger than the one formed by his 9-9 returned to 1. Obviously, the other party's strength was much stronger than his. Even if he didn't use it well at the beginning, as it gradually perfected, the strength he could unleash in the end was much stronger than his spear. And after the poison dragon was broken through by the blood-black dragon, it suddenly became still. Immediately after, the frozen body began to crack rapidly. Crack, crack, crack. Countless cracks appeared on the ice sculpture of the poison dragon. Until its entire body shattered, with a bang, it turned into endless powder. This blood-red poison dragon was much bigger than the 10-headed sun snake, so the scene was even more shocking. A body that was more than 40 years old turned into snow fragments, not even a drop of blood was left. It could be seen how powerful this spirit-sealing soul technique was. And a blood-red prism crystal also emerged from the exploding body of the blood-red poison dragon. It was the inner core of this poison dragon, or rather, the soul core. Wang Feng held this crystal core, and felt the energy inside slightly. He couldn't help but be shocked. I don't know how long this blood-red poison dragon has been nurtured in this blood pool. The previous challengers didn't disturb it, but now it has appeared. This means that the Hell Road must have changed. Wang Fengxin thought to himself. But this crystal core seemed to be very useful, containing surging energy inside. But there was an extremely terrifying poison inside, so it should be very difficult to absorb it casually. When the time comes, I'll use the cauldron of heaven and earth to refine it. However, this was not a difficult task for Wang Feng. He had the cauldron of heaven and earth. Even if this poison dragon's inner core was difficult to absorb, he could directly refine it into a soul crystal. Or something else would do. End of chapter. Chapter 528. The only drawback of this kind of refining was that it could not preserve the good characteristics of the poisonous dragon's inner core. It could only be refined into pure poison. Maybe it was because Wang Feng was not familiar with it. If the cauldron of heaven and earth could only refine the poison in it and preserve the original characteristics of the inner core, it might cause a mutation in the opponent's martial soul. How are you? Wang Feng looked at Tang San and Hulaina. Tang San was completely in a daze. Hulaina was a little dizzy. When she saw Wang Feng coming over, she wanted to climb onto his back. Because the temperature here was even worse, the soul power in her body had also decreased. Tang San's blue-silver field was also gone. If she was a little further away from Wang Feng, she would not be able to support herself. Wang Feng tied her on his back again. But he found that Hulaina's hands were intertwined, and she was panting. Her breath was extremely hot. Wang Feng frowned slightly. He knew that the evil blood aura here had invaded her mind. The killing intent in her body was boiling. Only when she was close to him could it be relieved. So she wrapped herself tighter and tighter around him like a koala. Wang Feng reached out and absorbed some of the killing intent and evil blood aura in her mind. Only then did Hulaina's consciousness become a little clearer. She hurriedly supported herself on Wang Feng's shoulder again, and her legs loosened a little. She lowered her head and did not speak. You learned it just now? Tang San looked at the white-clothed Grim Reaper and asked in a daze. Kind of. I just watched for a while. I think your hammer skills are quite powerful. It just so happens that I have nowhere to use my protective power. Wang Feng glanced at Tang San and thought, isn't it a little too much? However, Xiao San should not be so easily defeated. Indeed, upon hearing this, Tang San shook his head with a bitter smile. Wang Wu, if I had not observed you for over 2 years and fought with you before, I would have really suspected that you were that friend of mine who had disappeared for many years. His talent is also rather frightening. He had long since created a special technique to deal with enemies from my hammer technique. Now you can actually learn the wild hammering skill in one move? Could it be that this was a true genius? In fact, Wang Feng was a little genius now. After all, his brain had been tempered. His perception and memory had all improved greatly. Even his entire body had formed a special constitution. Is there such a thing? Wang Feng said in an admiring tone, then that friend of yours is indeed very powerful. I'm just imitating and learning, but he's able to create other techniques to deal with the enemy. Amazing. Tang San. Why did his tone sound so weird? It seemed that the white-clothed Grim Reaper also acknowledged Big Brother Feng as a genius. Sure enough, geniuses appreciated each other. If there's a chance, I'll definitely meet him, Wang Feng said. At this time, the two of them also set off. As they walked towards the final surface, they communicated with each other. Tang San's face slightly darkened. He shook his head and said, if there's a chance, I'll introduce him to you. However, I feel that you should be a bit stronger than Big Brother Feng, because this is a complete set of the disorder splitting wind hammer technique. Especially the last move, 99-1, it is very difficult to learn. It's not something that can be performed just by learning the technique. Wang Feng had only used the technique to imitate and create reverse heaven and earth, but in reality, the difficulty was not high. It just depended on whether you had the knowledge and thought of creating it. As long as you thought of it, you could experiment. However, this complete set of the disorder-splitting wind hammer technique was not so easy to learn. As they chatted, the three of them finally reached the end of the path. At the end was a platform, surrounded by a blood-red wilderness, and in front of them was an endless sea of blood. The magma-like blood rolled in it, flowing with a scorching aura. The temperature here was at least 150 degrees. Ordinary soul masters would find it difficult to survive here, let alone fight. Because the water on their body would directly evaporate, they could only use their soul power to resist, but this would consume their soul power very quickly. The air was also filled with the poison in the blood pool, which also needed to be isolated with soul power. That should be the exit. Tang San looked at the opposite side of the blood pool. It was about 200 meters high and slightly glowed. It was not difficult to go over. Tang San had the blue silver grass, the flying divine claw, and the 8-spider spear. Although his soul power was very little now, he could still go over if he wanted to. Although the white-clothed killing god carried Hulaina on his back, it was also not difficult for him to go over. But could it be so easy? Just now it was the 9th wave. Now that they came down, they should encounter the last wave. The surroundings were very quiet. But it was so quiet that it was a little scary. It's here. Wang Feng stared at the entrance in front of him. Dong dong dong. The sound of footsteps could be heard from afar. But as he walked in, Tang San heard clearly that it wasn't just one set of footsteps, but 3. Could it be that we have to deal with 3 people? Tang San's heart pounded. This last wave of attacks, compared to the previous 9 waves, was not as exaggerated. On the contrary, it was very calm. It was terrifyingly calm. However, the calmer it was, the more terrifying Tang San felt. At this time, his and Hulaina's combat power had been reduced by too much. It could be said that it was not of much help to the battle. It could only provide a part of the support. Even with the 8 spider spears, Tang San's current soul power could not even last for 10 seconds. Sometimes, thinking about it, if there was no white-clothed killing god, just the environment at this time, the constantly rising murderous aura and surging blood aura would easily destroy their spirit and will. At this time, the footsteps finally stopped. The 3 figures also walked out from the exit. Seeing these 3 figures, Tang San's pupils suddenly shrank. Immediately, his eyes opened wide. Even Hulaina, who was on Wang Feng's back, opened her eyes wide at this time. Looking at the 3 figures in front of her, she felt extremely incredulous. Those were 3 pitch-black shadows. Their bodies were flowing with a faint blood-colored light, and they did not look very outstanding. But Tang San and Hulaina could easily distinguish them. One of them held a clear sky hammer, the other had a fox tail flickering behind him, and the person in the middle had 20 sharp blades floating around him. This is actually our shadows? Tang San was stunned. In the last wave, we actually have to fight our own shadows? It's not a shadow, it's a mirror image. Wang Feng shook his head and said, "It's a mirror image created by special means. I didn't expect the last wave to be a test like this." It had to be said that this last wave of test was also somewhat out of Wang Feng's expectations. Generally speaking, if the 3 of them could pass through the first 9 waves, it meant that the 3 of them were stronger than all the attacking soul beasts in the first 9 waves. In that case, their greatest enemy would be themselves. And now, Wang Feng and the other 2 were facing their own mirror images that might have the same strength. But the difference was, now, only Wang Feng had the combat power. It was equivalent to Wang Feng was going to fight the 3 of them alone. Tang San almost blurted out, "This is impossible." P.S. Everyone, Happy New Year! Oh! Oh. Chapter 529. If it was under normal conditions, Tang San felt that they had a high chance of winning in a 3 versus 3 situation. After all, the other party was just a mirror image, and not a real person. It might not have wisdom, but it could copy their strength. Even its strength might not be a complete copy. But now it was extremely difficult to deal with. And it appeared in the last wave. Not to mention the 3 of them, if it was anyone else, they would have consumed a lot of energy after passing the first 9 waves. And in this last wave, if they encountered their own mirror image, they would not be able to defeat it. People were the most difficult to defeat themselves. Wang Feng also watched attentively. Logically speaking, being able to create mirror images of the 3 of them was enough to prove that this Hell Road was not a simple place. Wang Feng recalled the City of Massacre in his mind. He vaguely remembered that this place seemed to be a place of inheritance of a certain god. Wang Feng roughly knew that in the Douluo world, to become a god, one must pass down the position of a god. To become a god, One must pass the test of the inheritance left behind in the Douluo world by the gods of various levels. Wang Feng remembered that in the original work, Tang San inherited the positions of two great gods, the Azura god and the Sea god. After passing the divine examination in special places, he obtained the recognition of the gods and passed down the position of gods. However, Wang Feng had no idea how he had obtained them. Now, this hell road might be similar to that kind of inheritance, but it was not complete. Otherwise, this divine examination would be too simple, and that kind of special divine examination required the strength of a titled Douluo to be qualified. This may not be a divine examination. It can only create mirror images of the strength of the three of us. This is obviously not a normal method. Wang Fengxin thought, but it seems that there is also a special soul beast that might be able to do it? Copying the strength of the three of them and forming mirror images, this was obviously not something that could be done by ordinary soul skills. But Wang Feng vaguely remembered that in the Douluo world, there seemed to be such a special soul beast. I wonder how strong this shadow mirror image is? At this time, Wang Feng suddenly thought, if the strength of these three mirror images is even our hidden strength, then it is definitely not something that a special soul beast can achieve. It can only be the power of a god. One must know that Wang Feng still had many hidden methods on the road. Tang San's 8-spider spear and blue silver grass had not been used. If these shadow mirror images even had such a hidden ability, it would be too terrifying. Very soon, as the three figures walked out of the cave, they suddenly leaped down. Wang Feng saw with his own eyes that his own shadow controlled the sharp blades and formed a flight of stairs in the air. Hulaina and Tang San's shadows stepped on the sharp blades and jumped in the air, crossing the blood pool and landing on Wang Feng's side. These shadows are not simple. Wang Wu, they seem to be able to use your attacks. Tang San felt that it was extremely troublesome. Wang Feng. Wang Douluo of the Douluo of the Douluo of the two of the Douluo of the Douluo of the Douluo Tang Douluo. He even had some of Wang Feng's own style. To attack, Douluo of the Douluo Duof Douluo Douluo to attack. As for Tang San's shadow, he was at the back, wielding the clear sky hammer and hammering the void. Wild hammering technique. Tang San said in surprise, these mirror images seem to have our abilities. Thump, 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 thump. The clear sky hammer in the hands of the mirror image Tang San did not seem to be real, but at this time, every time the hammer fell in the void, it shook out a stream of air, exactly the same as when Tang San used it before. There was no difference at all. The mirror images of Hulaina and Wang Feng attacked Wang Feng himself. The head of the mirror image of Hulaina glowed slightly, and the eyes of the body that was originally like a shadow suddenly emitted a red light, and pink mist quickly spread around. It was Hulaina's charm ability. Even the soul bone? Tang San murmured, this is not an illusion, this is a real place. If a mirror image appeared in an illusion, even if the mirror image had its own strength, Tang San could completely understand it. Because illusions were all fake. But if it was in reality, could a mirror image with the same strength be replicated? This Hell's Road was indeed a little powerful. It's not the same. At this time, Wang Feng suddenly said, they should only have part of their strength. In other words, these three shadows only have the ability that we showed in the previous 9 battles. If we had revealed more of our strength, they would have been stronger. Wang Feng instantly saw through it. Especially his own shadow, it was not strong. It only had the strength of first gear. Of course, it could also activate second gear, because the opponent also had the mysterious underworld spike. And Hulaina's charm ability was also much weaker. Obviously, the mirror image of Hulaina's skull ability was much weaker than the real one behind him. When the opponent released the soul skill, Wang Feng could feel it clearly. After all, the soul bone in Hulaina's skull contained the consciousness of the stars, which inadvertently increased the power of the skull. The mirror image of Hulaina's skull obviously did not. In other words, it was impossible to replicate a real life, and the mirror image of Tang San used the wild hammering technique, although it was exactly the same as Tang San's. But there was also something missing, the concept. Wang Fengxian suddenly thought of a special cultivation technique in the wuxia novels in his previous life. Lesser phaseless method. It could imitate other people's moves, and the power was very strong. But a fake was still a fake. The wild hammering technique used by the mirror image of Tang San was similar to this. It seemed to be imitated by the lesser phaseless method. It looked very similar, but in fact it was very different, but the power should still be there. So on and so forth. Wang Feng felt that the mirror image of Hu Laiina and himself were the same. It seems to be. Tang San stared at his mirror image, and also noticed some clues. If his mirror image had the 8 spider spears or the blue-silver grass, the first thing he would do now would be to use the ability of the blue-silver grass to control Hu Laiina, instead of directly using the wild hammering technique. While heaving a sigh of relief, Tang San was secretly surprised by the white-clothed death god's observation. He did not expect the other party to be so calm at this time. This indirectly showed that the other party's state and strength had been maintained in a very stable state and was not affected at all. Be careful. After Wang Feng finished speaking, he rushed forward. Behind him, Hu Laiina let out a low groan and suddenly used both hands to tighten Wang Feng's shoulders. Wang Feng's current strength was actually less than half. He had consumed a lot of spiritual power and soul power. But against 3 fakes, Wang Feng was not afraid at all. End of this chapter. Chapter 530. Wang Feng took the lead and attacked Tang San in the distance. Wang Feng had used the disorder-splitting wind hammer technique before, so he was clear about it. Once the 81 hammer strikes came down, even if he could withstand it in his current state, he would have to expend a lot of energy. Wang Feng had no scruples because he was a shadow. The 10 sharp blades formed by the mysterious underworld spike attacked the mirror Tang San directly. The attack of the sharp blades might be scattered by the airflow around the mirror Tang San, but it was no wonder that it could interfere with the other party's operation. He only needed to attack at some key points to interrupt it easily. Wang Feng knew this very well. After using it just now, Wang Feng naturally knew how to interrupt this set of hammering technique. However, just as the 10 sharp blades were about to attack the mirror Tang San, swoosh, 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 more than a dozen shadow blades suddenly twisted over, completely interrupting the trajectory of the 10 shadow blades. It was the mirror Wang Feng who saw through Wang Feng's thoughts. This made Wang Fengxian slightly surprised. Could it be that my own mirror image also has extremely high intelligence? Or could it only have its own thoughts? How could it react so quickly? The remaining 10 blades were aimed at the mirror image of Hu Laiina and himself. The mirror Hu Laiina directly used her tail to spread the sharp blades. Her fox-tail soul bone was an external soul bone, so it also had extremely strong power. What surprised Wang Feng the most was that 2 of the sharp blades had already slashed and attacked Hu Laiina, but there was no effect. Damage immunity? In the distance, Tang San took a deep breath. He saw it clearly. Although the 3 mirror images were strong, they were only replicating the strength that they had shown. Although they were strong, Tang San also saw that the white-clothed Grim Reaper might have a chance. He never thought that these mirror images' abilities were not limited to this. How could he fight them? There was no chance at all. His heart gradually became more anxious. I can still use the purple divine light, but once I use it, I will have no soul power in my body. The purple divine light should be effective against these 3 mirror images, right? Although Wang Wu can resist the 3 mirror images now, he can't cause any real damage to them. If this continues, Tang San looked at the battle situation. It had to be said that the white-clothed Grim Reaper Wang Wu was ridiculously strong. At this moment, he was fighting 3 mirror images alone, but he was not at a disadvantage at all. His mirror image's strength was quite different from his own. Wang Wu himself had one sharp blade, but the mirror image had to use at least 2 sharp blades to block it. The mirror image's physical fitness was also much worse. With a single punch, the pitch-black mirror image was directly sent flying. Hulayina's charm ability did not have any effect on him, but it was difficult to deal. That was because her external soul bone was very strong. There were basically no weak external soul bones. Whether it was Wang Feng's mysterious underworld armor or Tang San's 8-spider spear, they were both ridiculously strong. Especially the spikes on the foxtail, they seemed to be able to be used as hidden weapons. When he brandished it, his strength was also extremely great. Hulayina's physical fitness was not much worse than Tang San's. Another punch sent Hulayina's steel-like foxtail flying. Wang Feng frowned slightly. These 3 mirror images were not affected by physical attack. Their bodies were half virtual and half real. Wang Feng's mirror image also had the Xianming spike, which meant that it could also activate second gear together with Hulayina. It was very strong. Wang Feng was not in his best condition, so he could not kill these 3 mirror images. Although it was difficult to hurt him, it was not a solution to keep fighting. Especially his own mirror image, which was very difficult to deal with. It seemed to be able to see through his thoughts, which meant that the mirror image's thought process was very likely the same as his. That was the most troublesome point. His mirror image seemed to be able to detect many of Wang Feng's attacks and thoughts, and was able to warn him in advance. It must be known that other than Wang Feng's own strength, his various ingenious ways of attacking were also very important. For example, just now, Wang Feng pretended to retreat to a place not far away from the blood pool and sent Hulayina flying with a punch. Then, he wanted to use the sharp blade to send Hulayina flying into the blood pool. He wanted to see if the hot lava in the blood pool could destroy these mirror images. However, his mirror image seemed to be able to sense something in advance. It flew into the air and caught Hulayina, who was about to fall into the blood pool. Otherwise, the mirror image of Hulayina would have fallen into the pool of blood. This was the first time Wang Feng felt that he was so troublesome. If he had all his strength, Wang Feng would not be afraid. More importantly, this mirror image had some of its own fighting method. That was very troublesome. Why am I so difficult to deal with? Wang Feng could not help but think to himself. Also, he could not interrupt the wild hammering technique that Tang San was using. After a few exchanges, Tang San had already used 60 hammering technique. The terrifying airflow was wreaking havoc around the mirror image of Tang San. Violent energy poured out. At this time, Hulayina, who was behind Wang Feng, moaned softly and breathed in Wang Feng's ear. My external soul bone has a flaw. It should allow you to defeat her immediately. Wang Feng was stunned when he heard this. Flaw? How could an external soul bone have a flaw? Generally speaking, unless there was a problem during the fusion with a soul master, the soul beast would have inherited the soul bone's inherent flaws. However, Hulayina was willing to say it out loud? After all, if she said it out loud, he would know her flaw in the future. Wang Feng was silent for a moment. He did not ask. Yes. Hulayina's palm tightened a little, and her voice trembled. It's 3 inches below my foxtail at the end of my spine. If you attack that place, my external soul bone will shrink and lose its effect temporarily. My body will also enter a state of stiffness and numbness. She seemed to have used a lot of courage to say it. After she finished speaking, she lowered her head. Wang Feng thought for a moment. That place seemed to be a little sensitive. It was at the buttocks. It was very difficult to think of. However, Wang Feng did not care so much at a time like this. His mirror images were more difficult to deal with than Wang Feng had imagined. If he could get rid of one, it would be one. He only hoped that these mirror images had inherited Hulayina's flaw. Wang Feng continued to attack Hulayina. With his strong physique, He quickly attacked the place that Hu Laina had pointed out. To be precise, Wang Feng only touched it lightly. The mirror image of Hu Laina's body suddenly stiffened. The fox-tail soul bone quickly shrank and returned to her body. Wang Fengxin was shocked. The flaw was real? His attack was very strange. Even Tang San, who was far away, did not see any clues. He only thought that the white-robed Grim Reaper used some special technique to make the external soul bone of Hu Laina disappear. End of chapter. Chapter 531. Get down. Naturally, Wang Feng would not miss such an opportunity. He kicked the mirror image of Hu Laina and sent it flying into the blood pool far away. Just as Wang Feng had expected, these reflections weren't affected by physical attacks, but they would be attacked by the blood pool. The blood pool contained terrifying toxins and high temperatures. There was also a violent energy inside. Ordinary soul masters would have to rest after a few seconds. After Hu Laina was kicked down by Wang Feng, her body melted at a visible speed. Wang Feng was much more relaxed after dealing with a reflection. However, Wang Feng didn't expect Hu Laina to reveal her secret. Such a weakness would be the Achilles heel of a martial artist. They wouldn't tell anyone about it. Hu Laina had been dealt with, but he was the most difficult one to deal with. He was in second gear. Even if he only used the mysterious underworld spike, he was still ridiculously strong. In addition, his reflections fighting style was similar to his. I can only crush her. Wang Feng knew that he didn't have any weaknesses. If he wanted to defeat himself, he had to crush him with his own strength. There was no other way. However, if he didn't use the 5 forms of the Green Lotus, Panga's axe, or the Dark Angel, what else could he do to increase his strength? His reflection in second gear was extraordinarily strong. His opponent's body wasn't tempered by the karmic fire of the Red Lotus like his real body. It was just an illusion. However, its strength was real. Furthermore, it had a replica soul bone. The 100,000-year torso bone and the mysterious underworld armor brought about significant improvements. Wang Feng's physical strength was close to that of a rank 80 soul master when he was in first gear. When he was in second gear, his physical strength was close to that of a rank 90 soul master. If he wanted to crush himself in second gear, it would be easy if he used soul skills. However, he couldn't use soul skills now. Right at this moment, the chest of the mirror image Wang Feng glowed faintly, and an icy profound light suddenly shot out from its head. Wang Feng frowned when he saw this. Without hesitation, his torso shone as well. A streak of icy light shot out from his abdomen. It was Spirit Seal. As the two clashed, Wang Feng, who possessed a genuine 100,000-year-old torso bone, naturally had the upper hand. The icy-colored mystic light that he unleashed drowned out Wang Feng's Spirit Seal soul technique and attacked the mirror image. However, mirror image Wang Feng had already anticipated this. He immediately dodged, and the icy mystic light directly bombarded the distant blood pool. It actually directly shook open a bridge of ice. The strength of the Spirit Seal soul technique was directly proportional to its consumption. If a normal rank 50 soul master were to use a soul skill from a 100,000-year soul bone, he would probably be able to use it once or twice without making a mistake. Furthermore, it was extremely fast and had a lock-on effect, making it very difficult to dodge. It was clear that Wang Feng's doppelganger possessed Wang Feng's own battle mentality. It was used to deplete Wang Feng's soul force and buy time for his doppelganger Tang San to use his wild wind hammer. Do you really think I don't have a way? Wang Fengxin was shocked. It seemed that he was still very strong. Since that was the case, there was no other way. Wang Feng stood where he was, and the 6 bloodlines hidden under his clothes slowly lit up. This time, he didn't release his domain. Mirror image Wang Feng also had a domain. Wang Feng had frequently used it in battle. Releasing it was ineffective against it. However, after cultivating for more than 2 years, the Dark Angel Martial Soul didn't just have an additional domain. If it only had an additional domain, the Dark Angel Martial Soul wouldn't be able to compare to any of the forms of the Green Lotus. At this moment, as the 6 bloodlines flowed with a strange energy, they slowly lit up in Wang Feng's body. In a split second, different streams of air suddenly gathered around Wang Feng's body, and a powerful aura rose from Wang Feng's figure. These 6 bloodlines were slowly activated during the 2 years of cultivation. They didn't just produce a domain. Terrifying energy was hidden in each bloodline. Furthermore, they were constantly increasing, and hadn't reached saturation yet. This was also why Wang Feng was able to absorb the killing intent from the 2 of them, as well as their fiendish aura and various negative emotions. Therefore, these 6 bloodlines contained terrifying energy. Once they were activated, Wang Feng's body would enter an extremely strong state. Each bloodline gave him a huge amplification effect. It was about 1.5 times stronger. However, when Wang Feng used these blood tattoos, his mind and soul would be constantly attacked by 6 different emotions at all times. Under such an impact, it was easy to become a lunatic. Ordinary soul masters, even Tang San, wouldn't be able to withstand such an impact. Even titled Douluo wouldn't be able to. This had nothing to do with one's willpower. It was only related to one's spiritual soul. If Wang Feng hadn't used the Red Lotus karmic fire to temper his body, his soul wouldn't have been able to withstand such an impact. However, if he hadn't tempered his brain and soul, Wang Feng wouldn't have been able to cultivate his Dark Angel Martial Soul. Wang Feng's spiritual power was greatly depleted now. He couldn't maintain this state for long. It could only last for about 10 seconds. Wang Feng hadn't used this state before. As he was a little worried, he didn't have the chance. Now that he tried it, Wang Feng felt as if his spiritual soul was about to explode. This impact was completely different from the original Sin's domain. It was much stronger. Furthermore, the original Sin's domain wasn't complete. However, each of these 6 blood veins existed independently and were complete. In other words, the current original Sin's domain was just the aura of the 6 bloodlines. The power of the 6 bloodlines was the source of the Dark Angel Martial Soul. Wang Feng had cultivated in the capital of Massacre for more than 2 years, absorbing countless negative emotions and various chaotic auras. Right now, Wang Feng was releasing this power directly from his body. It wasn't hard to imagine how much impact Wang Feng's spiritual soul had to endure. However, everything was difficult at the beginning. Wang Feng hadn't used this move of the Dark Angel Martial Soul before. Now that he had the chance, Wang Feng had to give it a try. At this moment, Wang Feng's aura revolved around him. It was as if 6 huge dragons were flying around him. Majestic power surged from the 6 bloodlines into his body. On his back, Huliana's eyes suddenly became sober. She only felt that the white-clothed death's warm, spacious, and comfortable back suddenly became extremely cold. At this moment, Huliana's muddled consciousness was even more sober. She was a little confused as she looked at Wang Feng in shock. She didn't know what was going on. So cold Huliana's teeth were chattering. It wasn't the coldness of his body but the coldness of his spiritual soul. But at the same time, that powerful aura also shocked Huliana. She was lying on the back of the white-clothed death god. She could clearly feel that the strength and aura of the white-clothed death god had increased by several times. And it was still increasing. This was Wang Feng adapting to the huge energy of the 6 bloodlines. Tang San, who was watching from afar, was also incomparably shocked in the next moment. Before the 2 of them had a chance to react, Wang Feng moved. End of this chapter. Chapter 532. Huliana, who was behind Wang Feng, only felt that the scenery around her seemed to be in an illusory space. It was too fast. It was so fast that she didn't even have the chance to react, and she couldn't even make a sound. It was as if even her 5 senses were gone. Boom. The moment she regained her consciousness, she saw a black shadow being directly blasted far away. It was Wang Feng's mirror image. In the few seconds when Hu Laina lost consciousness, Wang Feng defeated his own image in an instant. It was too fast. It was much more powerful than the addition of the deification soul skill. But the side effects were too great. Taking advantage of the moment when the 6 blood traces were activated, Wang Feng quickly attacked the mirror image Tang San, who was still waving the wild hammering technique. Be careful! At this time, Tang San suddenly roared from behind. Immediately, the skull on his head bloomed again, and the purple light blasted toward the mirror image Tang San in the distance. It was precisely because the mirror image Tang San's wild hammering technique had been completed at this time. Clang! The void trembled non-stop. The hammering technique formed by 9 in 1, who knew how powerful the enemy could be killed by it. A black dragon rose from the mirror image Tang San. Tang San's purple divine light was a spiritual attack. It penetrated the opponent in one blow, but it didn't weaken the momentum of this move. The purple divine light blasted in the distance and suddenly exploded. However, the black dragon was still charging towards Wang Feng. In comparison, the power of the wild hammering technique used by the mirror image Tang San didn't seem to be much weaker than Tang San's. Oh no! In the distance, Tang San felt a chill in his heart. Just now, the white-clothed death god suddenly burst out his strength and defeated his own mirror image, but that kind of burst must have consumed a lot of energy and burden on the body. If he took this last move at this time, he was afraid that he would suffer a fatal injury. Wang Feng snorted coldly and looked at the giant dragon. First, he threw Hu Laina behind him. He didn't have any pity for her and directly threw her into the open space in the distance. Before the battle, he wanted to throw her down just now, but thinking that Hu Laina didn't have any fighting ability, she couldn't even do the basic dodging. At least Tang San still had some strength left. If Hu Laina were to be attacked, then she would probably die. Now that there was only one mirror image left, there was naturally no need to carry it. Hu Laina, who had been thrown to the ground, also felt the whistling of the wind. She barely managed to recover some of her strength. Using her hands to support herself, she gently landed on the ground. Her misty and watery eyes stared intently at Wang Feng. At this moment, she did not feel any dissatisfaction at the other party's rudeness. Instead, she was extremely worried. Because Hu Laina knew that the other party had thrown her out to prevent her from getting hurt. She had also witnessed the might of Tang Yin's hammer technique earlier. After throwing Hu Laina away, Wang Feng did not feel relaxed at all. He leaped up with both feet and condensed energy into his right fist. His soul power surged like the sea as he gathered all the strength in his body. A condensed aura surrounded Wang Feng's right fist. Facing the black dragon, Wang Feng directly punched out. Rumble! In an instant, the black dragon seemed to have been painted. It was instantly turned into a blank space by the terrifying aura of this punch. The violent airflow swept through the surrounding space, causing the blood pool below to churn and roll, setting off monstrous waves of blood. This terrifying punch not only pierced through and destroyed the black dragon, it even blasted a huge hole in the opposite wall. The momentum was incomparably great. Wang Feng fell from midair. Many holes were burned in his white clothes by the splashing blood droplets from the blood pool. However, the terrifying airflow brought about by this punch seemed to have reduced the temperature of this place by a lot. The mirror image of Tang San was directly blown away and then drowned by the monstrous waves of blood. At this point, all 3 mirror images had been destroyed. He can actually resist the wild splitting wind hammer techniques 9-9 to 1. Tang San was completely stunned. He was very clear about the power of the wild splitting wind hammer technique. With the strength he had displayed just now, he would have been able to kill the 10-headed sun serpent in one move. He didn't know how many levels he had surpassed. Although the mirror image didn't have the 8-spider spear or the blue silver grass, and even if he was stronger than the mirror image in all aspects, the power of the last hammer strike would not be inferior, because the mirror image of Tang San was in perfect condition. No. He should have broken the wild splitting wind hammer techniques 9-9-1 with pure strength. Tang San seemed to have thought of something and couldn't help but murmur. Just now, it wasn't the white-clothed Grim Reaper that received it at all. It was him who directly used his own strength to break that move. In other words, the power of that punch surpassed the wild splitting wind hammer technique performed by the mirror image of Tang San. Receiving and breaking through were two completely different concepts. What kind of terrifying strength was this? The wild splitting wind hammer technique was still very strong, especially the last hammer strike of 9-9-1, which was superimposed with the power of 81 hammers. It could be said to be terrifying. Wang Feng's normal second gear strength could receive Tang San's 9-9-1 with no problem. Even if it was first gear, he could receive it. But if he wanted to break it, it would be impossible. However, Wang Feng's current state was not second gear. After the power of the 6 blood patterns fused, his current pure physical strength was comparable to the strength of the deified soul skill plus soul-devouring blood wings soul skill. It should be at least a 10-fold increase. This was a very terrifying increase. In fact, Wang Feng had underestimated the increase contained in the 6 blood patterns. After landing on the ground, Wang Feng's face was pale, and the killing intent in his eyes was boiling. After a while, he slowly calmed down. His spirit felt a little empty. The spiritual exhaustion was because after the blood patterns were activated, the impact of 6 different emotions was too exaggerated. Although the activation of the blood patterns is strong, the negative effects are not small. Although my soul is very pure, the strength of my spiritual power is still not enough. Wang Feng sighed. In fact, in comparison, the strength of his spiritual power was not inferior to that of a titled Douluo, but a titled Douluo couldn't withstand the impact of these 6 emotions, because no titled Douluo's soul could compare to Wang Feng's. This was because such an impact would not only deplete one's spiritual power, but also have a huge impact on a soul master's soul. It was just that Wang Feng's spiritual power was not enough to use the power of the blood patterns. The depletion was huge, and he couldn't sustain it for long. Compared to the enhancement from the deified soul skill and soul-devouring blood wings, the weakness was very obvious. It could be used as an outburst, but over a long period of time, his spiritual power might not be able to sustain it before the enemy died. This was the first time Wang Feng used the power of the blood patterns, so he had many more calculations. He also had another trump card. 6 blood patterns, original sin domain. This was the result of Wang Feng's cultivation in the capital of Massacre for more than 2 years, and it had huge potential. It also allowed Wang Feng to unleash extremely strong fighting strength even if he couldn't use soul skills. If he met special enemies who could seal other people's soul skills in the future, it would naturally come in handy. It also allowed Wang Feng's strength to not only rely on soul skills. End of chapter. Chapter 533. Wang Feng stood where he was, gasping for breath and recovering quickly. The violent energy of heaven and earth around him was quickly absorbed into Wang Feng's body and transformed into pure soul power through the refinement of the meteoric tear. Tang San and Hulaina did not speak and waited quietly. After a while, Wang Feng walked back to the two of them. "How are you?" Wang Feng came over and asked. The violent airflow just now caused a lot of turbulence around, splashing a lot of blood and magma. It was easy to get injured. Fortunately, Hulaina was thrown a little far away by Wang Feng. Tang San had already dodged. "Fortunately, are you okay?" Tang San shook his head and couldn't help but ask, "Are you hurt?" That was a genuine 9-9 return to one move. Wang Feng sighed and said, "I'm still a little injured. Hearing this, Tang San breathed a sigh of relief and thought, if you're really not injured, I really can't understand. Is it an internal injury? Tang San hurriedly asked, is the injury serious? Just now, he used a punch to break the 9-1. Although it was very powerful and successful, he should have also been shocked by the power of the hammer. However, it might be that his internal organs were injured, so it couldn't be seen from the outside. But then, he heard the white-clothed Grim Reaper continue to say, my elbow is a little dislocated. I used too much force just now. With that, Wang Feng pressed the elbow of his right hand with his left hand and gently lifted it. With a crack, it was fine. Then Wang Feng waved his right hand and nodded slightly. Okay, it's recovered. Tang San, was it just dislocated because he used too much force? If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. Tang San stared at the white-clothed Grim Reaper for a few seconds and didn't speak. He really couldn't feel any injury. Of course, it was also possible that the other party hit it well and was still wary of them. This was normal, and Tang San didn't intend to ask more. Wang Feng walked to Huliena again and looked at her, who was a little confused. I'm fine, Huliena felt as if she was in a sauna. Her body was constantly emitting hot steam. It was obvious that she was a little delirious from the environment here when she left Wang Feng. Wang Feng helped Huliena absorb the killing intent and murderous aura in his body again. Then, he carried Huliena and Tang San to the entrance of the cave on the platform. This time, because Wang Feng was proficient in controlling it, he could even make Tang San step on the sharp blade and fly into the air. In addition, Tang San had the flying god claw, so he could walk up easily. Tang San didn't even use his blue-silver grass. On the other side of the cave, there was a gentle breeze blowing down, making one feel relaxed and happy. Tang San felt that he would never forget this part of Hell Road for the rest of his life. Life was too difficult. Looking at the boiling blood pool below, Tang San recalled the scenes of the past 2 years. Then, he seemed to have thought of something. What are you waiting for? Wang Feng looked at Tang San and asked in confusion. This evil place should be redeemed. Tang San took a deep breath and his tone became a little cold. Then, he took out a special herb from his 100 treasures pouch. Seeing this, Wang Fengxin's heart skipped a beat. This herb was called Snow Swan's Kiss. It was a special immortal herb in the ice fire Yin Yang Ai. In terms of the herb itself, it was not poisonous, but it could activate the poison thousands of times and amplify the effect of the poison. The snow-white immortal herb seemed a little out of place in this bloody purgatory. Tang San held the Snow Swan's Kiss with his jade hand and trembled a little. There are more or less toxins in the body of any soul master. Just like the humans in my previous life, they looked very healthy, but in fact they had countless hidden toxins. It's just that they weren't fatal. If I breathe in this Snow Swan's Kiss, I'm afraid I'll be poisoned to death. Wang Feng thought to himself, even the current soul masters are no exception. Of course, I'm an exception. His body was spotless and incomparably pure. Any subtle poison that entered his body would be instantly purified. It was the same even if it was food. Although Wang Feng could stay away from food for a long time, as a food lover and an outstanding descendant of China, he still had to eat. This blood pool was the energy source of the Massacre City's domain. If the Snow Swan's Kiss was thrown in, everyone in the city of Massacre would be poisoned to death. One had to know that the people in the city of Massacre had countless times more toxins in their bodies than ordinary soul masters. After all, those people drank Bloody Mary all year round and had accumulated countless toxins in their bodies. Wang Feng did not stop him and watched as Tang San threw the Snow Swan's Kiss in. Then, he turned around and climbed towards the entrance of the cave with Wang Feng. The entrance of the cave went straight up. After climbing for a while, the two of them could faintly see a white light. It was a light that was similar to a barrier. When Wang Feng's body passed through the barrier, he finally heard a familiar voice in his mind. "Congratulations, host, for successfully obtaining a card. You have obtained the first half of the secret Qian of the 9 secrets. You have a 90,000-year soul ring. You have obtained an additional reward, a 20,000-year soul ring age increase. The next time you check in is at the center of the Great Star Doe Forest 1 year later. There are no additional requirements for additional rewards." Hearing this voice, Wang Feng was slightly stunned. Secret 9? Could it be the heaven-shrouding 9 secrets? Wang Feng's mind was filled with thoughts. As a small otaku in his previous life, he had read a lot. He also knew about the heaven-shrouding 9 secret. The heaven-shrouding 9 secrets was created by the 9 heavenly lords in the ancient era. It was the most suitable secret technique for humans to cultivate. It was originally one, but because it was too heaven-defying, it was not tolerated by the great Tao. Then, it was split into 9. It seemed that 2 of them were lost. Heaven-shrouding 9 secrets had only read the majority of it. Disregarding the other 8 secrets, the heaven-shrouding 9 secrets was a secret technique that cultivated one's divine sense and condensed one's primordial spirit. When cultivated to the extreme, it was said that one could predict the future. Wang Feng did not care if he could predict the future or not. But to be able to cultivate one's divine sense and condense one's primordial spirit, wasn't that what he wanted? Although the rules of the world were different, divine sense itself was spiritual energy, and the primordial spirit was the soul. It was just that the words were different. The heaven-shrouding 9 secrets was quite suitable for him now. But it was only half of it. But it was enough. Such a heaven-defying secret technique, half of it was enough for Wang Feng to cultivate. Thinking about it, Wang Feng was suddenly curious. Until now, he didn't seem to have cultivated any kind of secret technique or cultivation formula. Because the Douluo world did not have such things. Tang San did, but it would not be spread. Unless Wang Feng created it himself, it was impossible to create these secret techniques in a short time. It also required a variety of understanding of the forms of all things in the world, to understand the world, to experience the world, and to experience the different wonders of life. Wang Feng felt that he might be able to create a XX secret technique. After all, his current body was not an ordinary body. But it would take too much time. Now that he had this half of the heaven-shrouding 9 secrets, Wang Feng was a little curious. With his body and soul tempered by the red lotus hellfire, would it feel like flying when he cultivated these secret techniques? P.S. There might not be any tonight. End of chapter. Chapter 534. Half of the front secret word was related to the cultivation of the soul and mind. For the current Wang Feng, it was what he needed the most. However, Wang Feng was not in a hurry. He only had half of this secret technique and might not be able to comprehend it. If he could not comprehend it, he would not be able to cultivate it no matter how special his soul and mind were. What he needed to do now was to walk out of this hell road. After passing through the white fog, Wang Feng felt that the world in front of him had turned into a white color. Hulayina behind him had also disappeared. It was as if he had entered another mysterious space. The coldness formed from killing intent wrapped around him like a tide. Cold and lonely. It was an endless killing intent. It was a killing intent that could slaughter all living things. It was a killing intent that could kill all gods and Buddhas. The killing intent followed Wang Feng's body and entered his brain, causing his heart to turn cold. Wang Fengxin was shocked. Could this be the massacre god domain of the capital of massacre? Was this the reward of the Hell Road? However, this domain was too terrifying and too strong. There was only one possibility. It was a massacre god domain left behind by a true god-level expert. At this moment, King's body suddenly emitted a pitch-black light and began to resist the massacre god domain. In this world of white light, the black light on Wang Feng's body was extremely special. It was Wang Feng's original sin domain. The moment the original sin domain appeared, the terrifying massacre god domain was like a calm sea that had been set off by a tsunami. It surged towards Wang Feng. Wang Feng groaned as he felt his consciousness tumbling. He vaguely understood something. The original sin domain was isolating the massacre god domain. However, his original sin domain was not strong enough. In the white massacre god domain, it was like a piece of duckweed, swaying in the wind as if it would be torn to pieces at any time. The reward of the Hell Road is a talent massacre god domain. However, it seems to conflict with the original sin domain. Wang Feng's mind was in a mess under this impact. He did not understand. How could there be a conflict between talent domains? Or could it be that the original sin domain was too high level and did not allow a lower level domain to appear? Thinking about it carefully, the original sin domain contained 6 types of origin energy. These 6 types might not be of a higher level than the massacre god domain, but they were emotions that all living things had. Fusing them into a domain was naturally not ordinary. Is it trying to assimilate this massacre domain or even absorb it? At this moment, the original sin's domain seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. 6 auras surged out from the 6 blood patterns and surrounded Wang Feng's body. The black light would shrink and expand at times, but it did not disappear in this white world. Just like that, Wang Feng subconsciously resisted. After an unknown period of time, he suddenly felt a warm feeling, and his consciousness suddenly woke up. After slowly opening his eyes, Wang Fengjing saw that both Tang San and Hulina were looking at him. All around them was open space. It didn't seem like they were in the city of massacre. The two of them were already dressed neatly, but their temperaments had changed slightly. Thinking about it, it should be because he had obtained the killing god domain. "You're awake." Hulina's beautiful eyes seemed to reflect a person's figure. Looking at Wang Feng, her snow-white face suddenly became a bit rosy. "Huna and I woke up just now." Tang San stared at Wang Feng. His light blue eyes flashed with a bright light from time to time. His temperament was a bit cold and gloomy. Obviously, it was affected by the killing intent. After more than 2 years of killing, it was difficult for him to change in a short time. In contrast, Hulina was much better. Maybe it was because the killing intent on her body was much less than Tang San's. At this time, it gave people a fresh and comfortable feeling. In fact, because Hulina was carried by Wang Feng in the last few waves of attacks, she was infected by Wang Feng's aura. Therefore, she suffered the least impact and influence in this hell road. "Wang Wu, have you also obtained the killing god domain?" Huna asked softly. Wang Feng was silent for a long time. He did not obtain the killing god domain. In other words, the killing god domain and the original sin's domain had merged. The 7th blood pattern lit up slightly and seemed to have been activated. But it was very faint. However, just before he woke up, where did that warm feeling come from? Wang Wu was a little confused. He looked at Hulina and thought, could it be him? Although Wang Feng was wearing a mask and his eyes were not exposed, Hulina seemed to feel that this Wang Wu was looking at her, which made her gaze a little erratic. Wang Feng did not answer Hulina's question. He just said, "It's time to part ways." Wang Feng did not care much about the killing god domain, because it was impossible to be stronger than the original sin's domain. On the contrary, it was much weaker. The impact of the original sin's domain was an impact on the soul and consciousness of any living being. As long as one was in the original sin's domain, it would be weakened by a lot. After absorbing the killing god domain, the 7th blood pattern lit up, which meant that the original sin's domain would become complete and even stronger. So soon. Hulina was stunned and walked a few steps closer. She wanted to say something, but she did not know how to say it. This person was one of the only 2 people who knew the secret of the shortcomings of her external soul bone. The other was naturally her teacher, Bibidon. At this time, Hulaina had some subtle emotions in her heart. She did not want to leave just like that. There was reluctance, expectation, gentleness, and some complicated feelings in her eyes. Wang Wu. Strictly speaking, without you, we might not have been able to walk out of the Hell Road. Tang San also said in a deep voice, I will remember this kindness. After waking up, Tang San recalled the Hell Road and felt that every step was frightening. It was almost impossible for a person to pass through it alone. He really did not know how those killing gods who had passed through the Hell Road in the past managed to pass through it. This time, if it was not for Nicholas Wang Wu, he was afraid that, no need. Wang Feng waved his hand and shook his head. If I'm not wrong, this Hell Road's attack wave is based on the number of people who pass through it. The more people there are, the more difficult it will be. If it's only 1 or 2 of you, the difficulty will naturally be much lower. It was very normal, just like those dungeons in online games. The more people there were, the more difficult it would be to adjust the balance. Even without him, these 2 people might be able to pass through it. Hearing this, Tang San was slightly stunned. He did not think of this point. Wang Wu, can you take off your mask? At this time, Hulaina suddenly asked, before we leave, I want to take a look at your appearance. When Wang Feng heard this, he thought to himself, when my consciousness was immersed in the killing god domain just now, didn't you take the opportunity to take a look? Tang San was slightly stunned and looked straight at Wang Feng. Could he be Brother Feng? This thought appeared in Tang San's mind again. Along the way, he had this thought many times. But every time, Tang San felt that it was impossible. How could Brother Feng come here? And go through the Hell Road with him? This was simply a fantasy. End of chapter. Chapter 535. Moreover, his ability was different from Brother Feng's. However, after careful observation, Tang San found that this Wang Wu and Brother Feng were somewhat similar. They were both very strong and very talented. Their battle thinking was also very unexpected. But that was the only similarity. What's there to see? Wang Feng shook his head. He had never revealed his identity, not only to show off, but also because Hulaina was a disciple of Bibidon. At that time, the Pope was also present. If they knew of his existence, they might go back and tell Bibidon. What should he do? Of course, Wang Feng could feel that Hulaina might have a good impression of him. But what was the use of this good impression? Could it be compared to her feelings of being nurtured by Bibidon in the martial spirit palace for so long? Wang Feng would not do such a stupid thing, so in the past few years in the massacre city, Wang Feng did not show the ability he used in the Pope's palace. Cultivating the dark angel martial soul was also done in secret. The power of the blood mark and the original sin domain were all cultivated. She would not know at all. Wang Feng did not even change the shape of the mysterious underworld spike. He only used it to kill people. In fact, Wang Feng was not afraid of his face. This was because Wang Feng's current appearance was very different from 4 years ago. He was currently dressed up because he was afraid of revealing his face. Because his appearance was too shocking, it would cause a commotion. What if Hulaina accidentally fell in love with him? Wang Fengxin thought. Hulaina sighed softly. She had already told him about such a private flaw. Was he really unable to satisfy such a small request? What a heartless man! Wang Feng seemed to have seen through Hulaina's thoughts. He walked over and said indifferently, I know how to cure that flaw of yours. Hearing this, Hulaina was stunned. Her external attachment soul bone was a shortcoming because her body wasn't strong enough during the fusion process. Moreover, because this flaw was too private, Hulaina did not tell anyone else, only Bibidon. However, Bibidon didn't know how to solve this problem. After all, she wasn't the kind of person who specialized in researching soul bones. Soul bones were too rare, and there were very few people in the entire continent who had external soul bones. It was impossible to research them, and they were one of a kind. Therefore, no one knew what the flaw was. You know? Hulaina asked in a low voice, her beautiful eyes shining. Although this kind of Achilles' heel was very hidden, once it was discovered in battle, it would be very fatal. It was easy for problems to arise. Hulaina was very clear about this. Of course. Wang Feng suddenly whispered something in Hulaina's ear. With that, he turned around and left. Gentlemen, we'll meet again if fate wills it. Wang Feng quickly disappeared from where he stood. Hulaina, on the other hand, stood rooted to the ground. Her face was so red that it seemed like it could drip blood. Her eyes were filled with anger and joy as she looked at the back of that figure. Nonsense! How can this kind of method be cured? Hulaina bit her lips and mumbled shyly. Then, she looked deeply at Tang San and said, Tang Yin, we'll meet again. After saying that, Hulaina also quickly left the place. However, the blush on her cheeks did not disappear. Tang San looked at the two of them and felt a little strange. He didn't know what that Wang Wu said to Hulaina. After a while, Tang San silently recalled the experiences of the past 2 years and slowly left this seemingly empty area. Until a low voice sounded, Little San. Tang San's body trembled. He looked ahead and saw that his father was already standing on the road in front of him. Tang Hao turned around and looked at Tang San. His face, which was already weathered, seemed to have aged a few years, and there were many more wrinkles. Father, is this the reason why you want me to come here to cultivate? Tang San took a deep breath, suppressed the excitement in his heart, and asked. After not seeing his father for more than 2 years, Tang San was already over 18 years old. At this time, seeing his father's appearance again, he had a different feeling in his heart. That's right. Tang Hao said slowly in a slightly hoarse voice, the Godslayer realm that you have now is more basic. It will allow you to form a kind of chi field. In this kind of chi field, you can weaken the enemy's strength by 10%, and your own strength will increase by 10%. As you cultivate this chi field, and chi field will form the true Godslayer realm. When that time comes, it will be very useful. It will definitely not be inferior to the blue-silver realm that you've awakened. Tang San nodded. The father and son chatted for a while. Father, I met a very mysterious person in the City of Massacre. That person should be the person who entered the City of Massacre before us 2 years ago. Just now, he was the one who went through Hell Road with me. That person is called Nicholas Wang Wu. Father, have you heard of him? I feel that this person is very strong. He's at least as strong as a soul Douluo. Tang San hesitated for a while and asked. His ability is also very strange. He also has a mysterious talent field. I think that he should be one of the more famous people on the continent. Tang Hao was silent when he heard that. In fact, in the past 2 years, he had been secretly observing Tang San. However, because the Hell Road was too special, he did not know much about it. Naturally, he knew about the white-robed god of massacre, Wang Wu. Even though Tang Hao had roamed the continent for many years, he did not know of such a person. What surprised Tang Hao the most was that even he could not sense the white-robed god of massacre, Wang Wu. It was as if he was blocked by a special aura, making it difficult for others to sense him unless he used his martial soul and soul power. However, that would be too obvious, and he would expose himself. Looks like Father doesn't know either. Tang San thought to himself, Father shouldn't have heard of this white-robed god of massacre, Wang Wu. Let's not talk about that person for now. Tang Hao said in a deep voice, in the past 2 years, I secretly went to the Pontiff's palace and roughly learned some news about Lin Feng. He took the time to go there. News about Lin Feng? Tang San was stunned at first. He hurriedly asked, Where is he now? Tang Hao shook his head and said, More than 4 years ago, after I left with you, Lin Feng seemed to have escaped from the Hall of Martial Spirits. Hearing this, Tang San suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that Lin Feng was really not dead. However, after he escaped, he was hunted down. Tang Hao's next sentence made Tang San's heart skip a beat. This person is very powerful. He can be said to be the strongest titled Douluo in the Hall of Martial Spirit. The strongest titled Douluo? Tang San was stunned. Even his father's tone was so solemn. One could imagine how powerful this titled Douluo was. But in the past 4 years, the Hall of Martial Spirits did not send anyone to capture Lin Feng. This means that there are only 2 possibilities. Either Lin Feng is in the Hall of Martial Spirits, or he is dead. Otherwise, the Hall of Martial Spirits would not have done nothing. Tang Hao fell silent after saying that. He had spent a lot of effort to find out this news. Hearing this news, Tang San suddenly clenched his fist. No matter which of these 2 possibilities it was unacceptable. However, Tang San hoped that it was the first possibility. At least Lin Feng was still alive. End of chapter. Chapter 536. Little San, I know what you're thinking, but now is not the time. Tang Hao said calmly. You've been cultivating in the city of massacre for 2 years, and your mind and soul have been infected by the killing intent. You need time to settle down, or else you won't be able to control your body's condition. Come with me, I'll bring you to a place. For the rest of the time, you need to learn and change so that you can control the killing intent in your body. 2 years of slaughter could easily change a person. For example, Tang San was filled with killing intent as soon as he walked out. It was too easy to attract attention. Tang San nodded silently and quickly left with Tang Hao. As Hu Laina walked, she recalled the white-clothed reaper's words. As long as you touch it more and get used to it, there won't be this kind of flaw. Touch it more? Thinking about it now, Hu Laina felt incomparably shy. How could she touch such a private place? Touch it more? However, this was indeed a very correct method. In fact, Wang Feng's intention was to use his soul power to stimulate that place and lower the sensitivity of that place. Naturally, there would be no such thing as a weak point or lifeline. Moreover, this should only be due to the fusion of the external soul bone and the buttocks, causing the sensitivity of that place to increase. That was why such a problem occurred. Touch it a few times a day for a month, and it would naturally be fine. Other than that, there was no other way. As she ran shyly, Hu Laina recalled the memories of the past 2 years. Every time she thought of that white-clothed figure, Hu Laina couldn't help but feel her heart palpitate. In all fairness, during the 2 years in the capital of slaughter, she only had admiration for him, and was only shocked by his strength and power. She was even more vigilant. Later on, as time slowly passed, the white-clothed reaper in the capital of slaughter was like a peerless jade that had fallen into a quagmire. He was still so pure, causing people to unknowingly be deeply attracted. Although she was also somewhat attracted, she didn't seem like a flirtatious slut in the capital of slaughter. Perhaps the real subtle change was in the last battle, when the white-clothed reaper actually saved her. Hu Laina was very clear that if the white-clothed reaper didn't save her at that time, she wouldn't even have the chance to enter the path of hell, let alone walk through it. Star, tell me, what kind of person is he? Hu Laina's heart trembled as she communicated with the star in her head. Wu Ao, Xingxing could only communicate with Hu Laina through her consciousness, instinctively responding in Hu Laina's mind. You said that you also feel close to him. Is it because of his aura? Was it when he was carrying me? Hu Laina stared blankly for a moment before chuckling. That's really impressive. You're a soul beast, yet you can actually feel close to it. Oh. Alright. I know you're not an ordinary soul beast. Hu Laina comforted Xingxing. In the latter half of Hell's Road, her consciousness was almost in a comatose state, and she didn't know what Xingxing felt like. Now that she suddenly recalled the latter half of Hell's Road, Hu Laina's lips subconsciously curled into a smile. but perhaps even she herself didn't know how sweet her smile was. Tell me, how do I feel about him? Gratitude, admiration. There should be some of them. Hulaina thought, white-clothed Grim Reaper. Nicholas Wong Wu. I really wonder what kind of person he is. However, he shouldn't be my biggest enemy, unlike Tang Yin from the Supreme Sky Sect. We'll definitely become enemies in the future. Xing Xing didn't answer her. At this moment, a voice in front of her woke Hulaina up. Lass, what's the matter? Why are you smiling so happily? Hulaina stopped in her tracks and looked in front of her. It was the Jew Douluo. The Jew Douluo looked at her with a smile. Elder Jew. Hulaina looked at him with joy in her eyes. I passed Hell's Road. I even obtained the Death God's domain. The Jew Douluo's voice was a little sharp as he smiled. Her Majesty already knows. She came to see you before and was very satisfied with your performance. Come back with us. If she knows that you passed Hell's Road, she should be very happy. Her Majesty is also very curious about your experience in Hell's Road. She hopes that you can go back and tell her about it. Hearing this, Hulaina nodded lightly. A thought suddenly appeared in her mind. I must convince Teacher to let the white-clothed Grim Reaper join the Martial Soul Hall. He's so powerful, Teacher will definitely be very satisfied. At this moment, Hulaina seemed to have thought of something and asked, Is Elder Gui not here? Elder Ghost and Elder Jew had always appeared and disappeared together. They rarely appeared alone. He went to kill someone. The Jew Douluo smiled faintly. Who? Hulaina was puzzled. The white-clothed Grim Reaper. The Jew Douluo said slowly. Hearing this, Hulaina's body trembled. She cried out, No! Where is Elder Gui? Let's go and find him. He can't kill the white-clothed Grim Reaper. Upon hearing this news, Hulaina was so shocked that her mind went blank. She didn't even think about it before replying. The Jew Douluo frowned and shook his head. Her Majesty said that the white-clothed Grim Reaper is too strong. He can't be allowed to leave Massacre City alive. She wanted to make a move, but found out that you guys had already entered Hell's Road. She instructed me and Elder Gui to kill him after you guys passed Hell's Road. She wanted you to make a move, but Her Majesty said that we can't disturb your cultivation. Hearing this, Hulaina seemed to understand something. The white-clothed Grim Reaper's strength was gradually revealed. When her teacher found out about the situation, he already had a premonition that the white-clothed Grim Reaper would be a huge threat. In fact, this was indeed the case. In Hell's Road, the white-clothed Grim Reaper's strength and special abilities had left a deep impression on Hulaina. No, no, Hulaina said anxiously. He saved me in Hell's Road. Elder Jew, can you make an exception and not kill him first? He's so strong. Wouldn't it be better if he joins the Martial Soul Hall? Hearing this, the Jew Douluo thought for a moment and said, Little girl, what you said makes sense. Although Her Majesty the Pope's order was to kill the white-clothed Grim Reaper directly, there might be some misgivings and suspicions. He felt that this person wasn't easy to control. After all, anyone who could walk out of Massacre City wasn't simple. If Tang Yin didn't seem to have a titled Douluo protecting her, he would have killed her too. But it's not very likely. Do you think that the white-clothed Grim Reaper will join the Martial Soul Hall? The Jew Douluo thought about this and shook his head. Everyone who walks out of Hell's Road is extremely strong and not simple. They will definitely become titled Douluo in the future. You want someone like him to join the Martial Soul Hall and work for us? It's too difficult. But we can still try, right? Hulaina's expression became more and more anxious. Elder Jew, can you stop Elder Gui first? The Jew Douluo seemed to be convinced. He nodded and frowned. All right, it's impossible. With Elder Gui's strength, I hope that the white-clothed Grim Reaper can hold on for a while longer. P.S. There are 2 or 3 more updates tonight. End of chapter. Chapter 537. After Wang Feng left the two of them, He found a quiet place where no one was around and took off his mask. He revealed a face that was as bright as the stars. His eyes seemed to contain the mysteries of the universe. If anyone was here, they would be deeply attracted to him. I can upgrade 2 of my soul rings to 100,000-year soul ring, Wang Feng muttered to himself. The system's additional rewards are all about increasing the age of my soul rings. Does it want me to cultivate to become a god? This reward is comparable to the top-tier god exam, right? However, 20,000 years isn't much. After thinking for a while, Wang Feng decided to upgrade the 90,000-year soul ring from the cauldron of heaven and earth to a 110,000-year soul ring. This was because Wang Feng felt that the cauldron of heaven and earth would be more useful. A scarlet soul ring rose from Wang Feng's body. At this point, Wang Feng finally had his first 100,000-year soul ring. Although it was only his first 100,000-year soul ring, it was a huge improvement for Wang Feng. Even for a titled Douluo, 100,000-year soul ring's improvement was huge. Just the pressure that a 100,000-year soul ring brought to a soul master was not something that ordinary soul rings could compare to. Secondly, he had 2 soul skills. After the Ice Dragon Whale soul ring was upgraded to a 100,000-year soul ring, Wang Feng also obtained the second soul skill of this soul ring. It was a rather special soul skill. To be precise, it was a passive soul skill. All enemies who attacked him would be spiritually sealed for 5 seconds. As long as he changed his cauldron of heaven and earth, this ability would automatically take effect. This soul skill seems to be quite strong. Wang Feng looked at his jade-like skin and the soul beast that had turned into an ice sculpture because it had attacked him. He was stunned. This soul skill might even be effective in Hell Road because it did not require soul power to activate. The cauldron of heaven and earth would automatically appear when he activated it. If he had this soul skill before, he would have been able to cross Hell Road very quickly. Even the final mirror image would have been easily dealt with. Spiritual Seal was a very strong soul skill from a 100,000-year soul bone. Even if some soul skills were immune to control-type soul skills, it was difficult to be immune to Spiritual Seal. Although 5 seconds was fixed, 5 seconds was enough to determine the outcome of the battle for Wang Feng. If he added the mysterious underworld armor in the future, any titled Douluo who dared to attack him would be spiritually sealed, his defenses weakened, and he would be able to kill them like chopping vegetables. All the enemies who attacked him would die. Let's call it Ice Reversal. Wang Feng thought for a moment and came up with a name. Other than the addition of a new soul skill, the 20,000-year soul ring also increased Wang Feng's rank by 1, bringing him to rank 58. It's been more than 4 years, but I've only reached level 10. Wang Feng felt a little helpless. It's a little slow. Fortunately, my cultivation speed hasn't slowed down yet. This was Wang Feng's only guarantee. Wang Feng had been pondering about a name for his current body. After thinking about it for a long time, Wang Feng couldn't think of a good name until just now. Dustless Glass Body. Wang Feng pondered. His words were simple and unadorned, and there were no suffixes like saintly physique, Taoist physique, or divine physique. After pondering for a while, Wang Feng retrieved an ancient piece of wood from his soul tool. This ancient tree should have the former secret word, right? Wang Feng looked at the ancient tree. Its body was dark brown, and it gave off an ancient and desolate aura. But there's nothing on it? Wang Feng looked at him for a long time. After looking at Gu Mu for a long time, he still couldn't figure out anything. What about the front secret? Do I have to figure it out on my own? The material of this ancient tree is probably very high. It's not something the Douluo world's materials can compare to. It should be some kind of high-grade material from the Shrouding Sky world, right? Wang Feng couldn't help but think to himself. After pondering for a long time, Wang Feng still couldn't figure out a single word from this ancient tree. His mind was still a little confused. Is it because of the first half? Wang Feng thought for a while. There was only one half of this ancient tree. Perhaps the system had to give him the other half to piece together before he could use it? It was also possible that he needed to comprehend the first half of the secret of the front word on his own in order to comprehend the first half. At this moment, Wang Feng suddenly thought of something. He kept the ancient tree and put on his mask again. A cold smile flashed across his face. Interesting. There's a titled Douluo chasing after me? Wang Feng was astonished. After he left, he didn't relax at all. He had considered the possibility that there might be a titled Douluo beside Hulaina after she walked out of Hell's Road. Hence, he didn't relax and left very quickly. But he didn't expect there to be one. However, Wang Feng wasn't afraid of a titled Douluo now. Of course, if it was someone as powerful as Bibidan's 1,000 Dao flow, Wang Feng wouldn't be able to defeat him. He could only run. However, if it was a rank 92 or 93 Douluo, he might be able to kill him instantly. But that would also expose his identity. Furthermore, if it was a rank 95 Transcendent Douluo, it would be more troublesome. After all, there was a huge difference between each rank. When Wang Feng sensed the presence of this titled Douluo, a hoarse laugh rang out. Kiki, what a white-clothed Grim Reaper! You actually sensed me in advance? It seems like you're at least a soul Douluo. Hearing this voice, Wang Feng knew who it was. It was the ghost Dalu. The ghost Douluo is here. It seems like the chrysanthemum Douluo is here too. But why do they want to kill me? Wang Feng was bewildered. He was sure that he hadn't exposed his identity. The other party also addressed him as the white-clothed Grim Reaper, and not 911. This meant that the other party didn't see through his identity. Then, could it be Bibidan's order? She seems to be one of the 2 Grim Reapers in the City of Massacre. She's also Hulaina's backer. Bibidan must have been to the City of Massacre and seen my identity as the white-clothed Grim Reaper. She realized that I was too strong, so she wanted to kill me? Wang Feng couldn't help but laugh. She didn't see through my identity, and she wanted to kill me directly? She should have tried to recruit me first. Can't she make a move after I rejected her? Can't she give me some face? Furthermore, she chose the time when I was walking out of Hell's Road, when my soul power and spirit were both depleted. How sinister. However, even if this was the case, this Bibidan was a little ambitious. She must have guessed my personality from what happened in the City of Massacre. I'm not the kind of person who would submit to other organizations easily. The white-clothed Grim Reaper even rejected the King of Massacre's recruitment in the City of Massacre. Such a person wouldn't join other organizations. Furthermore, he was too strong, and his loyalty wasn't high. Wouldn't it be better to kill him directly when he was walking out of Hell's Road? This was probably what Bibi Dong was thinking. Tang San was probably protected by Tang Hao, so the chrysanthemum Douluo and the ghost Douluo didn't dare to go. Wang Feng's mind was like lightning as all these thoughts flashed through his mind. He clearly understood why the ghost Douluo would appear here. Wait, Martial Soul Hall. At this moment, something flashed through Wang Feng's mind. But in the next moment, a ghostly figure suddenly appeared in the distance. It was the ghost Douluo's ghostly figure. End of chapter. Chapter 538. Blood Patterns Activate. Wang Feng's lips curled into a smile as he saw this. He seemed to have thought of something. He still didn't use any other abilities. Instead, he used the power of his Dark Angel's blood patterns. At the same time, he activated his original sin's domain. However, Wang Feng didn't use his dark martial soul to possess his body. His innate domain and blood patterns didn't require a martial soul to possess his body. Otherwise, his blue-silver grass would have appeared when Tang San activated his blue-silver domain. Against a rank 95 Transcendent Douluo, Wang Feng wouldn't be so arrogant as to only use his first and second gears. especially against an agility type titled Douluo like the ghost Dalu. Innate domain? The ghost Douluo's astonished voice could be heard from afar. Even he didn't have a domain. Although a titled Douluo's ninth soul skill could be a domain, not all of them had one. It wasn't hard to imagine how rare a domain was. Following this, a cold snort could be heard. Following this, Wang Feng sensed that the ghost Douluo's aura had disappeared. Martial soul true body? Wang Feng was a little shocked. He's become faster too. The ghost Douluo's martial soul was the phantom. Such a special martial soul had the ability to conceal one's aura. After all, the ghost Douluo was a transcendent Dalu. With his original sin's domain, he would definitely be affected, but it wouldn't be fatal. After activating his martial soul true body, even he couldn't detect it. The difference in soul power was too great, and his spiritual power hadn't fully recovered. He could only say that he had mostly recovered. Soul skill. Ghostly shadow god binding silk. A ghost-like sound rang out, and countless black threads of light suddenly appeared in the air. They were like infrared rays. They were densely packed and intertwined in mid-air. Following this, they started to shrink towards Wang Feng. Following this, a figure charged into Wang Feng's original sin's domain. He's here. Wang Fengxin was a little shocked. The original sin's domain covered about 100 meters. Wang Feng couldn't sense his opponent outside. However, Wang Feng could sense him very clearly inside the original sin's domain. He was very fast. Compared to Wang Feng's 6 blood patterns, he wasn't inferior at all. In fact, he was even faster. In a battle of such a level, the mysterious underworld spike was very useful. Wang Feng didn't want to expose his mysterious underworld armor. The ghost Shadow Douluo was indeed very strong, Wang Fengxin said. He immediately activated his martial soul true body after knowing that Wang Fengxin had detected his presence. However, Wang Feng did not intend to use the other 4 forms of the chaotic green lotus. Forget about the Pangu axe, what if the chrysanthemum Douluo showed up as well? If he was smart enough to run back and report to the martial spirit palace, it would be impossible for him to cultivate peacefully in the future. Moreover, Wang Feng had another plan. Hence, he was only using the power of his blood patterns, his original sin's domain, and his cauldron of heaven and earth to exchange blows with this ghost Dalu. Because these abilities were something that 9 Open had never used before, but they were still very powerful. Wang Feng snorted softly and dodged the black silks with ease. However, the black threads of light seemed to have a tracking effect. It was a tracking-type soul skill. It chased after Wang Feng and continued entangling him. A cold wind flashed by, and a ghostly figure suddenly appeared behind Wang Feng. Soul skill. Ghost Sex Shadow Spinning Pill. The ghost Douluo did not get close to Wang Feng. Black light gathered in his hand, and a black ball of light that resembled a raisin-gan flew towards Wang Feng. Wang Feng, what soul skill is this? Kamehameha? Raisin-gan? The black ball of light contained immense strength, but Wang Feng was not afraid. His torso shone brightly, and a streak of dazzling, icy light shot towards the black ball of light. When the two collided, the black ball of light was immediately frozen. It had become an ice ball in front of Wang Feng. The ghost Douluo was stunned when he saw this. What soul skill is this? Is it so strong? It can seal an energy ball formed from a soul skill? What a joke! It can even seal the myriad spirit ice heart, which has been formed for hundreds of thousands of years. How can it not seal a ball of light? Here, take it back. Wang Feng looked at the ice ball in front of him, and kicked it towards the ghost Dalu. Explode! An icy light flashed, and the ice ball landed in front of the ghost Dalu. Wang Feng could remove the ice seal from his spirit seal soul skill. Just like the ice flame furious lotus, he could control it at all times. The black ball of light suddenly exploded, and the ghost Dalu reacted quickly. He disappeared from where he was like a gust of wind. A huge explosion sounded. No matter how fast the ghost Douluo reacted, he did not teleport. He was still engulfed by the shockwaves from the explosion. He's not hurt? Wang Feng was a little surprised as he looked at the ghost Douluo. The black ball of light's explosion was not weak. The ghost Douluo's 50,000-year soul skill was not simple. It was extremely damaging, and it could also damage a soul master's spirit. It was a type of mixed attack. Damage immunity? Wang Feng furrowed his brow. He realized that the black fog around the ghost Douluo's body did not make him seem real. He was illusory. Most illusory bodies could be immune to some damage. It was very troublesome. Only spiritual attacks were the most effective. The ghost Douluo's martial soul true body had a certain degree of damage immunity. Wang Feng laughed coldly when he saw this. He quickly moved to avoid the black threads behind him. So what if he's immune to damage? Kid, you're quite strong. You must have hidden your soul power rank, right? Your soul power rank should be at least that of a soul Douluo. Otherwise, a rank 50 soul master shouldn't have been able to unleash that icy light earlier. How old is your torso soul bone? It's at least 70,000 years old, right? The ghost Douluo's voice sounded from all directions. Furthermore, you're only slightly slower than me. You also have an innate domain. When I entered your domain, my spiritual power was quickly depleted. I was attacked by 6 types of frightening spiritual attacks. This is not an innate domain that an ordinary soul master can unleash. I don't know how much soul power it consumes every second. It was hard to imagine that the white-clothed death god was so strong. In an instant, the white-clothed death god seemed to have unleashed 10 times his strength. His frightening aura, innate domain, and mysterious soul-bone soul skills. The ghost Douluo was astonished. However, it was impossible for him to escape death. A pitch-black soul ring shone from his body. Following this, the ghost Douluo's speed increased by several times. It was as if he had teleported. Soul skill, rainbow ghostly shadows. When he saw this, Wang Fengxin was shocked. Although he was no longer the same person he was when he was attacked by the ghost Douluo and the chrysanthemum Douluo, he was still astonished when he saw the ghost Douluo's true abilities. These titled Douluo are quite capable. Even in his domain, the ghost Douluo was still able to unleash such speed. Soul skill, myriad ghost slash. Low murmurs sounded from all directions. This was a powerful close combat soul skill. It was also the ghost Douluo's 6th soul skill. End of chapter. Chapter 539. It could absorb the power of darkness, store it, and unleash it in an instant. At the same time, it was a special spiritual attack. When it attacked the enemy, it would split into hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of ghostly shadows that would tear the enemy's body apart. It was a one-hit kill. A huge black light suddenly blasted towards Wang Feng's chest. At this moment, Wang Feng turned his palm. Cauldron of heaven and earth. An ancient cauldron suddenly appeared in the center of Wang Feng's palm. The blood-red light was so blinding that it hurt. 100,000-year soul ring? 1. The ghost Douluo's eyes were almost blinded by the scarlet light as he was in the midst of his attacks. Before he could think, his attack had already landed on Wang Feng's chest. However, at this moment, he didn't see the attack of 10,000 ghostly shadows. Instead, his opponent's skin suddenly turned ice-cold. At the moment when the attack was about to hit him, crack, crack, crack. In the blink of an eye, the huge black light in his hand was frozen. His entire body was also frozen. He was immune to damage. Tsk tisk. Wang Feng looked at the frozen ghost Douluo and couldn't help but laugh. A passive soul skill like ice reflection was indeed very strong. Actually, Wang Feng had also suffered a portion of the damage, but an instant cast passive soul skill like ice reflection was simply too fast. When his opponent touched him, he was spirit-sealed. He didn't even have time to deal any damage. 5 seconds. Wang Feng grabbed his arm. The ghost Douluo was spirit-sealed. Even if he was in his martial soul true body state, he wouldn't be immune to any damage. Wang Feng guessed that there was a certain damage amplification effect. This was because spirit-sealed soul skills could harm a soul master's spirit. It seemed like they could even freeze one's consciousness. 5 seconds. Even if I can't kill you, I can still cripple you. Wang Feng grinned. He clenched his fists and punched the frozen ghost Dalu. The strength of this punch penetrated the ice and penetrated the ghost Douluo's body. Following this boom boom boom, Wang Feng punched the frozen ghost Douluo over and over again, and Wang Feng punched the frozen ghost Dalu. In his current state, each of his punches was very powerful. The ghost Douluo wasn't a defense-type soul master. His defensive abilities weren't very strong. In fact, they were very weak. Every punch landed squarely on the ice sculpture, but they didn't break the spirit-sealing soul skill. Instead, they passed through the ice and struck the ghost Dalu. Every second, Wang Feng punched at least 10 times. Would this ghost Douluo be beaten to death in 5 seconds? Wang Feng was currently in second gear and had a 10-fold increase in strength with the addition of the blood mark. Because the 7th blood mark had not been fully activated, the absorption of the killing god domain had yet to display its true effect. One had to know that the current deified soul skill could only increase all attributes by 5 times, while the soul-devouring blood wings could increase all attributes by 2 times and increase attack power by 3 times. It was similar to the power of activating 6 blood tattoos. Of course, the deified soul and the soul-devouring blood wings had other abilities, and they couldn't be compared with just a multiplier. However, Wang Feng's current physical strength was stronger than that of a normal titled Dalu. However, Wang Feng's mental power was being drained by a large amount every second. This was also the side effect of activating the blood mark. Meanwhile, the Douluo and Hulaina were rushing over at top speed. The energy waves over there are very strong. The singular velvet sky connecting chrysanthemum in the Douluo's hand shone faintly as he sensed the energy waves around them. It should be over there. The energy waves are very intense. I'm afraid the battle is about to end. Looking at the time, it's not easy for the white-clothed death god to withstand the old ghost's attacks for so long. After hearing this, Hulaina's body trembled slightly. The two of them rushed forward for a while more. Suddenly, a series of muffled groans could be heard. This sound was similar to the sound of a fist hitting an extremely hard object. Furthermore, it was a solid object. It should be the old ghost's 8th soul skill, the 72 strikes of the earth fiend ghostly shadow. The Douluo was astonished. I didn't expect the old ghost to use such a combo. This white-clothed death god is not simple. Such continuous attacks will often cause a huge sound. In just a few seconds, he can unleash 72 consecutive attacks with all his strength. He can instantly kill his enemy. I've rarely seen old ghost use this move. This white-clothed death god seems to be quite strong. Girl, he might not be able to survive. Although he saved your life in Hell's Road, we have no choice but to obey the Pope's orders. After hearing this, Hulaina's face turned pale. A look of misery appeared in her eyes. She was very clear about the Ghost Elder's abilities. There were only a few transcendent Douluo in the Martial Soul Hall. Although they had just reached rank 95 and became transcendent Douluo, they were still not someone Wang Wu could compare to. No, for some reason, Hulaina felt a little pain in her heart. How can he die like this? After speaking, Hulaina took the lead and rushed forward. The Douluo shook his head. He thought to himself, "Don't tell me this girl has fallen for the white-clothed death god in Hell's Road?" However, that white-clothed death god is indeed very strong. For example, a move like the 72 strikes of the Earth Fiend Ghostly Shadow can only be used after activating his martial soul true body. To be able to force the old ghost to use such a powerful soul skill is enough to prove, at this moment. Boom! A loud explosion could be heard all of a sudden. This is the final attack. The Douluo was astonished. When this final attack landed, the enemy would be dismembered into 70 pieces. His entire body would explode, and he would die instantly. At the same time, there would be a loud boom. Normal titled Douluo would not be able to take all of this attack head-on. This white-clothed death god is a little too strong. He can actually force the old ghost to use all of this move? It's probably not a question of whether he can survive. Even his corpse will be gone. As he thought till here, the Douluo sighed again. After this, he furrowed his brow. Something doesn't seem right. Why is the old ghost's aura so weak? Could it be that he expended a lot of energy after using this soul skill just now? It should be. I haven't seen him use it for a long time. He must be very familiar with it. Let me take a look. As he thought, the Douluo flew forward. In just a few blinks of an eye, he arrived at the battlefield. Hulaina had already arrived, but she was still in a daze. This girl must have lost her mind, right? The Douluo sighed in his heart. He walked to Hulaina's side and comforted her. Girl, don't be sad. There are countless heroes in this world. Don't be too sad because of the white-clothed death god. You can use this opportunity to train your character. However, Hulaina did not speak. Her entire body was trembling. No one knew what she had seen. Elder Ju, Hulaina suddenly pointed in front of her and was in a daze. What's wrong? Elder Ju was puzzled. That's a black shadow lying on the ground. He's bleeding profusely. Is that Elder Ghost? Hulaina muttered as she pointed in front of her. Elder Ju was immediately stunned when she heard this. She quickly looked over and was completely stunned when she saw the person in front of her. P.S. It's a new week, please vote. Hey. End of this chapter. Chapter 540. Countless densely packed craters appeared on the open ground in front of them. It was unknown how heavy the bombardment was. At the same time, in the distance, Elder Ju finally saw her good friend. It was exactly as Hulaina had said. Old bastard! Elder Ju's sharp voice suddenly rang out. The two of them had been friends for decades, and this kind of friendship was even deeper than family. When he saw that his old friend was severely injured and half-dead, he couldn't care less about the huge disparity between them. The singular velvet sky connecting chrysanthemum in his hand suddenly released streaks of light that landed on Douluo's body. His singular velvet heaven connecting chrysanthemum also possessed a certain degree of healing power, but it wasn't very powerful. After all, it was an immortal herb martial soul. A faint orange light descended, and the chrysanthemum Douluo quickly rushed over to the ghost Douluo's side. After being healed, Douluo's aura became a lot better. What happened to you? The chrysanthemum Douluo asked in a trembling voice. He really could not understand. With old ghost strength, how could he be injured to such an extent? Could it be a rank 96 or 97 transcendent Douluo? But it shouldn't be that bad. Moreover, after old ghost possessed his martial soul true body, he was extremely immune to damage. With his speed, it was impossible for him to be injured so easily, let alone now. Unless he was restrained. Old chrysanthemum? You're here. Let me tell you, this white-clothed reaper looks a little strong. Douluo's voice could be heard. He wasn't dead yet, but his entire body felt as if it had been crushed. It was impossible for him to recover his combat ability in a short time. Even though Wang Feng's punches landed on Douluo's flesh, Douluo was a titled Douluo after all, and the strength of each punch was significantly reduced through the ice. If it weren't for the fact that his spirit was sealed, each and every one of his punches would have been able to inflict significant damage on Douluo. Beating you up like this, you call that a little strong? No, that's impossible. No matter how strong he is, how could he injure you to this extent? Brilliant light abruptly erupted from the singular velvet sky chrysanthemum in the Jew Douluo's hand, forming a yellow light barrier that enshrouded the two of them as they stared intently at the white-robed Grim Reaper in the distance. The two of them didn't know much about this white-clothed Reaper, because the other party had shown very little in the massacre city. They weren't clear about Hell Road's situation either. Hulaina, on the other hand, knew a little about it, but she did not have the time to tell them. Moreover, Hulaina had never seen Wang Feng use the Heaven and Earth Cauldron, not to mention the Ice Reflection passive soul skill that he had just obtained. It was impossible for them to know about these abilities. That brat has a very strong soul skill. When I attack him, he will be instantly frozen into an ice cube. Even his soul power and consciousness will be frozen. It's very terrifying, Doulu whispered. Furthermore, he has 100,000-year soul ring. As soon as the words were spoken, the chrysanthemum Douluo was instantly astonished. Hulaina was also shocked. 100,000-year soul ring. On the entire continent, there were only a handful of titled Douluo with 100,000-year soul ring. Almost no one below the titled Douluo level had 100,000-year soul ring. 100,000-year soul ring was unimaginable to a soul master. No wonder the chrysanthemum Douluo snapped out of his daze as he appraised the white-robed death god with a grim expression. It seemed like he had underestimated the other party. Don't attack him, Douluo continued. His icebound soul skill is only effective when the attack touches him. As long as we don't attack him directly, he'll be fine. That was indeed the case. Wang Feng's Ice Reflection soul skill was only effective when Wang Feng was attacked directly. Although this passive soul skill was very strong, it wasn't invincible. There were many powerful long-range attacks and control-type soul skills that could harm Wang Feng. However, it was very effective against many close combat soul masters. He also has a very strong torso soul bone. His soul skill is also very strong. It can freeze many long-range energy attacks. We have to be careful. However, that soul skill consumes a lot of energy. Old Jew, he shouldn't have much soul power left. Douluo's voice was hoarse as he said, either we retreat first or we follow orders and destroy him. You decide. After he finished speaking, Douluo started to recover. On the other side, Hulaina was still in a state of shock. When she heard Douluo's words, she hurriedly tried to dissuade him. Elder Jew, let's retreat first. The white-robed death god is so strong. If he has any other powerful abilities hidden, Hulaina had never expected the white-robed death god to be so strong after walking out of Hell's path. He who was able to use soul skills could even defeat Elder Ghost. If Elder Jew had come a little later, Elder Gue would have been killed. However, as the Pope's disciple, Hulaina couldn't persuade Elder Jew to give up. That would be going against her teacher's orders. To Hulaina, that was very difficult. However, she could persuade Elder Jew to retreat now, or choose another way to persuade him to surrender. Hulaina understood the white-robed death god a little. If the two of them hadn't fought, she might have been able to persuade him. However, now that they had fought, the white-robed death god probably wouldn't join the martial soul hall anymore. It would be fortunate if they didn't become enemies in the future. As she thought about this, Hulaina felt a little sad. The Jew Douluo was also thinking. Hulaina's words made some sense. His previous misjudgment had led to the current situation. However, the Jew Douluo was a little indignant. His good brother had been beaten to such a state. Was he going to leave just like that? This kid has expended so much energy. If I attack, even if he still has some trump cards, he can't possibly defeat another titled Douluo with them. But what if it's really possible? After all, he defeated Elder Gue. The chrysanthemum Douluo was caught between a rock and a hard place. Hurry up and leave. At this moment, Hulaina looked at Wang Feng in the distance and gave him a look. However, Wang Feng didn't leave. He only looked at the Doulu. He had expended a lot of energy. It was mainly his spiritual power that had been depleted. When he fought the ghost Douluo, he had used soul skills consecutively, and his soul power had been greatly depleted. After all, he had just come out from Hell's Road, and hadn't fully recovered. Wang Feng had used his Golden Lotus's abilities after he left Hulaina and Tang San. However, he hadn't recovered so quickly. His soul power and spiritual power were both very powerful now. It was impossible for him to recover so quickly. Furthermore, he had activated the power of his blood patterns. However, it wouldn't be difficult for him to defeat the Doulu. This was because he hadn't used his cauldron of heaven and earth's divine light. Once he used it, it would be very easy for him to defeat the Doulu. Even if the divine light couldn't last for long, it would be enough for Wang Feng to defeat the Doulu. However, Wang Feng had other thoughts. At this moment, Wang Feng suddenly spoke. Is this how the Martial Soul Hall does things? Let me think. I don't think I've offended any of you, right? Is this woman also from the Martial Soul Hall? In terms of morality, I've saved her several times in the City of Massacre and Hell's Road. After hearing this, Hulaina lowered her head in shame. As the middleman, she felt very uncomfortable. On one side, it was her master's orders. On the other side, it was her benefactor who had saved her several times. End of chapter. Chapter 541. The chrysanthemum Douluo's eyes flashed coldly. As Bibidan's confidant, he naturally knew how ruthless the Pope was. The fact that he had sent them to assassinate Tang San and Jiu Yikai was the best proof. He didn't even think of recruiting them. The best choice was to kill them directly. In addition, the Pope already had a monstrous plan in the past 5 years. Naturally, he wouldn't allow highly threatening powerhouses to appear. As for saving Hulaina, what did that have to do with anything? They didn't know, so they couldn't talk about morality. Wang Wu. Hulaina opened her mouth and wanted to say something, but she realized that she couldn't say a word. You've really disappointed me. Wang Feng shook his head and said, I thought that the Martial Spirit Hall would at least try to recruit me. I didn't expect you to attack me directly. That chrysanthemum Martial Soul Douluo, do you want to kill me too? If you want to kill me, then do it quickly. Stop talking nonsense. His voice was cold, but his words were straightforward. Recruit? The chrysanthemum Douluo looked at the white-clothed death god and snorted coldly. Will someone like you be recruited? Now that he saw the white-clothed death god's strength, the chrysanthemum Douluo was even more convinced of the Pope's wisdom. Such a person would never submit to anyone. However, how would you know if you don't try? At this moment, the white-clothed death god's voice slowly sounded. I've been alone my whole life. Why don't you know that I, Wang Wu, don't want to find a powerful force to rely on? After speaking, the white-clothed death god suddenly laughed a few times. He seemed to be mocking himself, sad and a little lonely. He vividly portrayed the image of a peerless powerhouse who had been wandering his whole life and was extremely lonely. Hearing this, the three of them were all stunned. Hulaina was the most touched. She looked at the white-clothed death god and felt a little sad in her heart. Was he such a person? I was born unable to feel emotions. I don't know joy, I don't know sorrow, and I don't have any relatives. That's why I came to the capital of slaughter. I want to use the slaughter chi here to let me feel emotions, even if it's just killing intent. The white-robed reaper shook his head and said, but the capital of slaughter still can't bring me any emotions. All the killing intent and chaos here are useless to me except for cultivation. My goal, since I was born, is to travel to every corner of the continent and feel the emotions of this world. On the way here, I have heard about how powerful your martial spirit palace is. I thought that if I couldn't feel any emotion in Slaughter City, I would go to your martial spirit palace and see if I could join you to train myself. However, with that said, The white-robed death god looked at the chrysanthemum Douluo. But they could all feel a sense of disappointment. The chrysanthemum Douluo. Gue Douluo. It was a misunderstanding. Cold sweat began to pour down the chrysanthemum Douluo's face. Could it be that the Pope had misjudged him? Was he born unable to feel emotions? No wonder he was always so cold and distant. Was that really the case? Hulaina was also stunned, but after thinking about it carefully, she believed it. No wonder Wang Wu didn't have any killing intent after staying in the capital of slaughter for 2 years. Elder Chrysanthemum, what he said is very likely to be true, Hulaina said in a low voice. He has been in the city of slaughter for more than 2 years, and the number of people he has killed is more than me and the other person combined. However, there is not a single trace of killing intent on his body. You should be able to sense his aura, right? It's so pure. Look, even your singular velvet sky connecting chrysanthemum is facing him. Ju Douluo. His constitution might be very special. He can't feel emotions since he was born. It seems like he uses this to cultivate. Hulaina continued, I think this is the reason why he is so strong. Although he can absorb all kinds of emotions to cultivate, he has lost the ability to feel emotions. That's why he is like that. Teacher and all of you might have misunderstood him. After hearing Hulaina's words, the chrysanthemum Douluo started to believe her. In the Douluo world, there were all kinds of strange martial souls. It wasn't impossible for martial souls to absorb emotions to cultivate. After all, in the simulated cultivation environment, there was also a suitable environment for martial souls. So, he can actually join our martial soul hall. Hulaina suddenly said excitedly, It's true. Let's leave first and discuss with teacher. The chrysanthemum Douluo looked at Wang Feng in silence. He looked at Wang Feng and said doubtfully, Do you really want to join the martial soul hall? Of course. Wang Feng continued to bluff, but it's impossible now. You have already attacked me. Although I can't feel emotions, it's impossible for me to kill you. However, it is impossible for them to kill me. The Martial Spirit Palace and I will be enemies from now on. Make your move. After saying that, a strong aura surged from Wang Feng's body. At this moment, Wait, Gue Douluo hurriedly shouted, What happened just now has nothing to do with the Martial Soul Hall. Actually, our Pope asked us to recruit you. He didn't ask us to attack you. But I don't think you are strong enough to be recruited by the Martial Soul Hall. That's why I attacked you. What happened just now definitely has nothing to do with the Martial Soul Hall. Hearing this, Hulaina was shocked and immediately reacted. Elder Ju, who was at the side, didn't even hesitate and said, That's true. The two of us wanted to test you. That's why we did that. The Martial Spirit Palace absolutely doesn't want to kill you. His Majesty the Pope has ordered us to recruit you at all costs. The battle just now was decided by the two of us. Wang Fengxin smiled. These two guys are really loyal to the Martial Soul Hall. They are indeed titled Douluo nurtured by the Martial Soul Hall. To think that they would even say such words in an attempt to recruit the white-clothed Grim Reaper. They wanted to push all the blame onto themselves. Even the Bibidon was not involved. Their reaction was fast. Is that so? Wang Feng said calmly. Of course. The two of us are willing to apologize for our rash actions just now. If possible, we can make amends. The chrysanthemum Douluo said slowly. The other party's strength was not inferior to a titled Douluo. If they could recruit him, it would be a great help to the Martial Soul Hall. Hulaina, who was at the side, was happy but also a little confused. It was clearly Wang Wu who beat Elder Ghost until he was half dead. How did it turn into two elders apologizing to Wang Wu? If that's the case, the Martial Soul Hall is still okay. How about this? Wang Feng continued, The two of you kneel down and kowtow to me. Then, I won't pursue the matter. Then, I will join the Martial Soul Hall. How about that? After he finished speaking, the Jew Douluo and Gui Douluo were furious. Then, they looked at the white-clothed death god gloomily. You want us, titled Douluo, to kneel down and kowtow to you? You are too arrogant. F***ck, I didn't expect to experience the feeling of being a villain. It feels so good. No wonder there are always villains in the novel. Wang Fengxin was laughing in his heart. You. The Jew Douluo looked at Wang Feng and suspected that he was fooling them. As he thought of this, the singular velvet sky connecting chrysanthemum in his hand shone brightly. It seemed like he was about to attack. But he was stopped by the Gui Douluo. It's not a problem for you to kneel down and apologize, the Gui Douluo said slowly. With your strength, you are not inferior to a titled Douluo. I have nothing to say about my defeat. But what if you are fooling us? How can you prove that you will join the martial soul hall after we kneel down and kowtow to you? The Gui Douluo was speaking the truth. End of chapter. Chapter 542. Isn't that simple? The white-clothed death god laughed. I'll go to the pontiff's palace directly and meet the pontiff. If I lie to you, I won't be able to walk out of the pontiff's palace, right? Hearing this, the two of them were slightly stunned and looked at each other. This method is feasible. Even if the other party has 3 heads and 6 arms, he can't do anything to the pontiff's palace. Since that's the case, we'll talk about it after you go to the pontiff's palace. If you join us, we'll kneel down and apologize to you. The chrysanthemum Douluo said slowly. All right, then we'll pay a deposit first. Kneel down first to show your sincerity. Wang Feng pointed at the two of them. That shouldn't be a problem, right? Their faces darkened. Old chrysanthemum, I'm not feeling well. You do it. I'm a man. As the saying goes, a real man should kneel to heaven and earth and kneel to his parents. The ghost Douluo suddenly said seriously. F***ck, old ghost, what do you mean? The chrysanthemum Douluo was stunned. He cursed softly. I'm not a man? Get the hell out of here. Kneel down yourself. It's embarrassing to be defeated. It's good that you kneel down. After speaking, the chrysanthemum Douluo kicked the ghost Douluo away. Hulaina looked at this scene in a daze. She felt a little weird. How did it become like this for no reason? It hasn't even been a while. Why are the two elders kneeling to the white-clothed death god? They even pushed each other. It was as if their friendship was broken. Hulaina looked at the white-clothed death god in the distance. He seemed to have changed the situation with just a few words in the end. The ghost Douluo knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Wang Feng. White-clothed death god, I've done what I said. I hope you'll do the same. Otherwise, you'll offend the martial spirit hall. When that happens, you'll be hunted down by the martial spirit hall. The ghost Douluo thought to himself. Seeing this, Hulaina felt a little suffocated. Elder Ghost was one of the top titled Douluo in the martial spirit hall. Other than the pontiff, who else could make him kneel? This is more difficult than killing him. I didn't expect Wang Wu to do this. It's unbelievable. Don't worry, I'll keep my word. Wang Feng smiled under the mask. Half a year later, I will go to the Pontiff Palace and officially join the Martial Spirit Palace? What do you think? Half a year. That was enough. The chrysanthemum Douluo helped Gui Douluo to his feet and nodded slightly. If you don't show up after half a year, you'll be breaking your promise. At that time, our Martial Spirit Palace will issue a bounty across the continent. The chrysanthemum Douluo slowly said. No problem, then we'll part ways here. See you in 2 years. That titled Douluo with the chrysanthemum martial soul, wash your knees and kowtow properly when the time comes. Clean your head and make sure your voice is loud and clear. After saying that, Wang Feng turned around and left. His speed was very fast. In just a few moments, he disappeared from their line of sight. He should still be holding back. Fortunately, I didn't make a move just now. Seeing this, the chrysanthemum Douluo furrowed his brows and said, How can this white-robed death god be so strong? His soul power rank shouldn't be high. Soul power ranks weren't a secret in Massacre City. Hulaina also knew that they were only around rank 50. His soul power rank is only around rank 50, but he's actually stronger than a soul Douluo. Douluo furrowed his brows and said, his soul power should be a little special. I don't know if it's because he can absorb emotions to cultivate. This person should still have a trump card that he hasn't revealed. You didn't have an advantage when you attacked him just now. The current situation should be the best outcome. Furthermore, I have a feeling that this white-robed death god will come to the pontiff's palace in half a year. He might really join us. When that time comes, he'll have contributed greatly to our martial spirit palace. The chrysanthemum Douluo nodded slightly. He had the same feeling too. This white-robed death god's actions were both righteous and evil. There was no pattern, but he gave off a feeling of certainty. Half a year was just enough time for them to report back to the pontiff and investigate this white-robed death god's background. They could make preparations when the time came. He is really going to join the martial spirit palace? Hulaina looked at the disappearing figure in the distance. Her heart started to beat faster. It seemed like everything was going according to her plan. Hulaina was a little excited. She suddenly felt very happy. A smile flashed across Wang Feng's face. Although it was just a bluff, it was also true. When he learned that Douluo came to attack him, Wang Feng had a shocking idea in his mind. Infiltrate the martial spirit palace. That's right. Wang Feng planned to be a spy. Wang Feng perfectly fit the conditions. He was the white-robed death god in the city of Massacre. He was born unable to feel emotions. He entered the city of Massacre just to feel the killing intent. He saved Bibidan's disciple, Hulaina, twice. He was very strong and comparable to a titled Dalu. Even if the martial spirit palace investigated, they could only find out that the white-robed death god came from the extreme north at most. They couldn't find out anything else. Wang Feng didn't show any abilities related to 9-1. The Dark Angel martial spirit was secretly cultivated in the city of Massacre. The original Sin domain and the power of the blood traces were cultivated in the past 2 years. Outside the city of Massacre, he had never been possessed by a martial spirit. He couldn't sense it just by cultivating the Qian Rinxue and the Thousand Dao flow. Furthermore, after the Dark Angel martial spirit was fully cultivated, the Thousand Dao flow and the Qian Rinxue couldn't be sensed anymore. The Universal Cauldron, the 100,000-year soul ring, and the powerful torso soul bone were all obtained in the extreme north over the past 2 years. This was also one of the reasons why Wang Feng didn't show his other abilities just now. Thinking of this, Wang Feng suddenly remembered a famous saying. Do you know how I, Wang Feng, have spent the past 5 years? Bibidan, do you know? The martial spirit palace is mine. I, Wang Feng, said that even if a true god descends to the mortal world, I should be able to protect it. However, it's definitely impossible to secretly join the martial spirit palace to cause trouble. The current Bibidan, although he hasn't obtained the inheritance of a god, is also very powerful. Wang Feng needed to cultivate his spiritual power to an extremely high level. In this way, the skull's Shadowma's soul skill should be enough to prevent someone as powerful as Bibidan from discovering him. In fact, even if they discovered him, they wouldn't be able to recognize him as Wang Feng. As long as Wang Feng didn't reveal the abilities he used in the pontiff's palace, they wouldn't suspect him at all. Of course, as a safeguard, he had to increase his spiritual power to strengthen the Shadowmist's soul skill so that even a rank 99 exceptional Douluo wouldn't be able to detect him. Another safeguard was naturally the soul-devouring Blood Wings teleportation ability. If he was discovered, he could immediately teleport away. It was important to know that he was now rank 58 and had a 100,000-year soul ring. All of his soul skills were greatly enhanced. Compared to 4 years ago when he first used teleportation in the pontiff's palace, it was many times stronger. Wang Feng was even confident that if he teleported away now, even the 1,000 Dao flow wouldn't be able to catch up to him. With these two safeguards, Wang Feng dared to say that as long as a true god didn't descend to the mortal world, it was basically impossible to expose him or kill him. In the next 6 months I have to do some research. I have to learn the front secret word. I have to raise my spiritual power to a new level. Half a year later, I will infiltrate the martial spirit palace. Bibidon tremble. P.S. There are 2 or 3 more updates tonight. Please count your votes. End of chapter. Chapter 543. Wang Feng's idea seemed crazy and dangerous, but in fact, he was as steady as an old dog. There were many reasons for him to do so. Firstly, Wang Feng wanted to know how strong the martial spirit palace was and how different it was from the original work. In other words, he wanted to know how much his appearance had changed the martial spirit palace. The 2 extra-titled Douluo were the best examples. Secondly, if he entered the martial spirit palace, Wang Feng could participate in many plans of the martial spirit palace. Even if he didn't participate, he would have the opportunity to know. Wang Feng remembered that in the original work, the 7 treasure glazed tile sect had been destroyed. But when and how it happened, Wang Feng didn't know the details of the plot. Similarly, there was also the matter of De Ming and Er Ming. If Wang Feng succeeded in breaking into the inner circle of the martial spirit palace, he would surely know the news clearly. In this way, Wang Feng could solve the problem of the unknown plot and make many arrangements to predict the enemy's future. Otherwise, he would always be passive. He was really unhappy, so this time Wang Feng planned to take the initiative to attack. He could even get close to the Bibidon and estimate his strength and how he got the inheritance of the god. Can I get involved in this? And what gave Wang Feng the confidence to do so was the front secret word. As long as Wang Feng could comprehend the secret of the front in this half-year, he would definitely enter the martial spirit palace. If he couldn't comprehend it, then sorry, he would have to develop his strength. After thinking about this, in the next few days, Wang Feng found a secluded place and slowly comprehended the secret of the front in the ancient wood while planning for the future. However, a few days later, in a forest, I still can't comprehend this ancient wood? Is it wrong for me to open it? Wang Feng sat on a huge rock and looked at the ancient wood in his hand. His spirit power slowly enveloped the ancient wood, but he didn't find anything. He couldn't figure it out. The secret of the front didn't appear. No matter how powerful and smart his dustless glass body was, it was useless. Could it be related to the spirit? Wang Feng suddenly thought, in the past 4 years, I have been maintaining a high intensity of cultivation. Even if I relaxed, my spirit was always tense. Cultivating alone was too lonely. Although the 2 years of slaughter in the capital of massacre and the cultivation of the blood tattoo didn't affect my mind and soul, it was still too lonely. However, it has always kept me in a state of high concentration. In addition, I've experienced too little, so I don't have enough comprehension. Is it still not enough to make the word Qian appear? To be precise, I've been cultivating and pretending for the past 10 years or so. It seems like I've experienced a lot, but in reality, it's very little. Thinking about it this way, Wang Feng understood a little. Although there was only half of the front secret word, it was a secret technique created by the great Emperor of Shrouded Heaven World. It was extraordinary. Comprehending it was definitely not an easy task. Then let's go out for a walk. Wang Feng calculated the time and said, I can relax a bit and travel around the continent. I can also see what the Shrek's 7 monsters have become and Grandmaster and the others. Thinking up to this point, Wang Feng's thoughts were clear, and he immediately set off. On the way, Wang Feng suddenly wondered how the martial spirit palace had dealt with what had happened 5 years ago. After all, both titled Douluo were injured. This kind of thing definitely couldn't be made public. It was too shameful. However, a lot of people knew of 9-1 Open's great name. It could be said that none of the academies that participated in the competition didn't know the name of 9-1. 9-1 still won the championship. Even if the competition was in the Pope's palace, it was impossible to hide this kind of thing. Wang Feng hadn't inquired about these things in the past 4 years, and his mind wasn't on it. Now that he planned to go out for a walk, he felt a little curious. Because it was a trip, Wang Feng didn't have a fixed goal. He took out the map, took a branch, turned it gently, and went wherever it pointed. This time, Wang Feng casually changed his clothes, like an ordinary soul master, and integrated into this Douluo world. His first stop was an ordinary city, Heaven Do City's Balak main city. He had met it in the promotion competition. After his brain was tempered by the red lotus karmic fire, Wang Feng remembered it. In this city, Wang Feng inquired about the news from more than 4 years ago. The championship was still 9-1, but the martial spirit palace claimed, after 9-1 won the competition, he tried his best and died. They also made an announcement to mourn 9-1's legendary experience, confirming his status and achievements. It was unprecedented in the history of the Soul Master world. After Wang Feng heard this news, he couldn't help but laugh. It seemed that the martial spirit palace didn't talk nonsense in order to keep their face and not cause a commotion. Although the reason for his death was a little far-fetched, there weren't many people who knew the specific situation at that time. Although the masters knew, they wouldn't make it public because the martial spirit palace confirmed the achievement of 9-1 and even publicized the news that 9-1-1 was Wang Feng. In addition, Xiao Wu's identity was exposed at that time, so they wouldn't publicize the situation at that time. More than 4 years ago, when it was just announced, it could be said to have caused a huge uproar. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the entire continent was shocked. The martial spirit palace's move was obviously to benefit the Masters Shrek Academy. One had to know that the Shrek team's reputation at that time was second only to 9-1-1. Among them, Wang Feng didn't appear much, but he still left a deep impression on everyone. However, the news that 9-1-1-1 was Wang Feng was simply shocking. This directly made the two academies famous all over the continent. One was Shrek Academy, because it was this academy that had cultivated the peerless genius 9-1-1-1. The other one was the Purple Star Academy, because Wang Feng was representing the Purple Star Academy with the identity of 9 openings. Therefore, after this news came out, countless young students flocked to these two academies, especially Shrek Academy. After hearing this news, Wang Feng found it quite interesting and sighed with emotion. Although I haven't been here for more than 4 years, my legend has been spreading everywhere during these 4 years. So far, many alchemists and soul masters believed that there was an inside story in the finals more than 4 years ago. 9-1-1-1's whereabouts were still unknown, and he didn't die of exhaustion as the martial spirit palace said. However, no one found 9-1-1-1 or Wang Feng either. Therefore, this kind of rumor was not reliable. Except for this news. Wang Feng stayed in this city for 2 days. Not for anything else, but because he met a very interesting person. This person was called Xiao Chenyu. The reason why he met him was very simple. At that time, Wang Feng was casually selling some rubbish obtained from the northernmost land in exchange for some gold coins at an auction. As a result, he heard an arrogant voice. Wang Feng? Of course I know him. You may not believe it, but 12 years ago, when he was 6 years old, he was my boss. You don't know, do you? End of this chapter. Chapter 544. At that time, he was already ridiculously strong. I was 11 years old at that time, a rank 12 soul warrior. He didn't even have a soul ring, but he could still beat me up. At first glance, I can tell that he is not an ordinary person. When Wang Feng heard this voice, he was stunned for a long time and thought in his heart, when did I accept a follower? Later, he thought about it and remembered. Then, there was a burst of laughter. You can brag as much as you want. Your boss is Wang Feng? My boss is 9-1? How could someone like you know someone like that back then? Ha ha ha, he is not here now, how can he brag? 9-1 can't come out of the coffin to refute. You are a soul king who is not even rank 50, and you have the nerve to say that he is your boss. Such a follower, he wouldn't have accepted it back then, right? Wang Feng saw Xiao Qinyu's appearance at that time. 12 years had passed, and that guy was not even rank 50, only about rank 45. 23 years old, rank 45 in fact, was not bad. Among most ordinary soul masters, he was above average. He looked a little handsome. He married a beautiful little wife, and was now the city lord of Nodding City. He inherited his father's business. Time flew, and Wang Feng did not come out to meet the other party, but silently watched in the dark. For ordinary people, Xiao Qinyu was living a good life. He had a certain strength, and he married a beautiful wife in a remote city. Wang Feng watched for a while. Needless to say, this kid was living quite well. He just liked to brag to others when he had nothing to do, saying that he knew 9-1 and Wang Feng. But no one believed it. Wang Feng remembered that when he was in Nodding City, he was addicted to cultivation. At that time, in addition to sparring with Xiao San and Xiao Wu, he also sparred with Xiao Qinyu several times. Later, when this guy was promoted to an intermediate Soul Master Academy, he rarely contacted him. Not to mention that he left Nodding City 5 years later. After sighing and observing for a while, Wang Feng left Balak City, and then went to Soto City, and visited the great soul arena of Soto City. He also went to the small village where the original Shrek Academy used to be. In Soto City, Wang Feng met Lao He and Lingren, who he couldn't find back then. Old He and Lingren had lost a limb each. Their strength had been greatly reduced, but they were still doing well. Wang Feng remembered that Si Rong had brought Lao He and Lingren to Soto City to seek refuge with Qianrenxue, who had disguised himself. However, Blackie and Lingren were much weaker than each other, so they settled down in Soto City. Only Si Rong was still with Qianrenxue. Old He is almost 40 years old, his son is already 15 or 16 years old. Wang Feng only watched from the shadows. These people were all part of his travels on the continent. Lingren has a family now. His wife is the girl that he used to earn money to support. She's studying in an advanced Soul Master Academy. Looks like nothing dramatic happened. They could be considered to be living a peaceful life. Wang Feng did not disturb him. He only watched for a while and then left. When they arrived at the small village outside of Soto City, they discovered that it had already become a small town. Maple Town. It was a name that surprised Wang Feng. Outside the town, Wang Feng saw an introduction on a signboard. 9-1 open once cultivated in my town for a year. Please don't miss it. F***ck Wang Feng did not know what to say for a moment. He felt that the world had changed. Wang Feng remembered that the Shrek Academy had moved to Heavendo City a long time ago. It used to be the Blue Tyrant Academy. He did not expect that the place where Shrek first lived outside of Soto City had become a small town. Big brother, are you here to pay your respects to 9-1 Open too? At this moment, a little boy at the entrance of the town tugged at Wang Feng's clothes and pointed to a string of accessories hanging on his body. Do you want to buy some souvenirs? I have a few wooden carvings of 9-1 Open here. Look, this is how he looked when he was in Soto City's Great Soul Arena. This is how he looked when he was in Silva's Great Soul Arena. And this is how he looked when he was fighting in Heaven-Do City's qualifiers. The little boy had a lot of accessories on him, but every one of them was carved vividly. They were Wang Feng's battle postures in various scenes in the image of 9-1 open in a black robe and a white mask. Some in Soto City, some in Silva City, some in the qualifiers, and even in the finals. It was his last battle against Tang San and the others in the finals. Wang Feng looked at them attentively and found that these carvings were very exquisite and detailed. There were even various forms of the mysterious underworld spike. It was almost the same as the figurines in his previous life. If you don't buy it now, there won't be any left later. This one sells very quickly, and it's a limited edition. The little boy chuckled. Wang Feng was stunned. Even a limited edition was produced? At this moment, many soul masters surrounded the little boy. After a while, all the accessories on his body were sold out. Look, big brother, they're all sold out. The little boy shrugged. It seemed that these figurines were especially popular. Wang Feng was a little dazed as he looked at the town. People came and went, and it was noisy. It was still morning. My F*King influence has become so big? Wang Feng felt a little strange. Even figurines are made? Is it true that when a person dies, everything becomes famous? Little friend, these figurines of yours. Oh no, these wooden carvings, who made them? Wang Feng asked. These wooden carvings were too exquisite. Furthermore, even that small town was built very beautifully. It was most likely not something that could be built by ordinary people. To be able to clearly depict his heroic appearance in the finals, this was definitely something that could only be drawn by someone who had seen it. This is a secret. I can't tell you. The little boy looked at Wang Feng with a vigilant face. I promise the owner of these wooden carvings that I will only be responsible for selling. At this moment, Wang Feng took out a bag of gold soul coins and put it in the little boy's hand. Ahem. This is negotiable. The little boy patted the bag and said with a straight face, Hey, come here. Look at that pattern, you should understand it, right? With that, the little boy pulled Wang Feng to the back of the standing sign and pointed at the pattern. It was the pattern of the 7 treasures glazed pagoda. Wang Feng. Mada, the original sign was at the back. So, this town was built by the 7 treasures glazed pagoda? Then these figurines were obviously carved by someone else. To be able to clearly depict his heroic appearance in battle. Don't tell me it's you? Wang Feng was a little surprised. This place was the place where he had his first official confrontation with her. It was also here that he kicked her to the ground. He directly kicked out a sword Douluo. That was how the story came to be. Okay, big brother, I'm leaving. It's a pity for you. These limited edition wooden carvings only appear once every half a month. The little boy shook his head and said, If you want to buy them next time, you have to wait half a month. Wang Feng was silent. End of this chapter. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.